Camryn Rogers, welcome back for a record third time to Denting.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here and talk with you some more and chat pre-Olympics.
Pre-Olympics and then, post-Olympics.
For the second time.
It has to, we're going to have to repeat it. It'll have to be pre-Olympics and post-Olympics right again.
Oh, yeah. It'll be so good. Then it'll be the fourth time.
Record
People are going to get sick of me.
No.
You'll get sick of me.
Never. I think a lot has changed ever since we last recorded. Plenty has changed, actually.
A lot.
I came to this realization this past semester. It's you can have anything you want, but not everything you want. That's why your sacrifices say more about you than your successes ever will. If you truly want to get to know somebody, don't look at what they have and their accomplishments. Look at what they don't have and what they gave up in order to get there. And ever since we last recorded 3 years ago, around this time, you've become an Olympic finalist. 2 years ago, exactly today as we're recording, you became the first Canadian ever to medal at Worlds for hammer throw, and you became the number 2 in the world. A year ago this time, you became a world champion, and now, in the matter of a few weeks, you're one of the favorites to go up on the Olympic podium, and maybe even the favorite to win gold. To get to know where you're at right now, that's all nice, but what have you had to give up to get to where you are today?
Over the last 3 years?
Over the last 3 years.
Oh my gosh. I feel like it's so funny because when I look back to 3 years ago, I feel like such a completely different person than I was. And I think that part of it has to do with a lot of the friends that I've been able to make, how training changes, but training changes are like, it's just an evolution, right? It changes as you change over time, as you grow, as you mature, as you try to focus on different little things and technical cues and blah, 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 blah. So that all was going to be different no matter what. But I feel like my mindset's different. I feel like my lifestyle is a lot different too, in a good way. And I feel like too, when I think back on Tokyo, I feel like I was so young, and I'm still young, I'm 25, but I feel as if I was even younger, and not just because I was the youngest person in the final at that point, but I was just 22 in the Olympics and just wanting to see, like, what could I do? Like, how can I leave my dent in this Olympic Games? And so now to see how that has grown, how that's developed over the 3 years from Olympic finalist to world medalist to world champion, and now to be looking ahead to Paris, like, the goal always was to like get in there and do as well as we can. Like, you don't just go into a competition or anything just to do it, like you want to be able to go and really fight for every placement and every centimeter on the field that you can get for us. And so now looking at the Paris, like, that goal is very similar, but it's definitely, I'd say, enhanced by a lot of the other pressures that I think have also sort of like come forth since then.
Elaborate on that.
The pressures of like, every year you want to be better. Every year you want to improve on your last season and always be a little bit better than you were last time, right? Like, those are the usual things that, like, we say, those are the usual things that you hear, but especially to improve year to year, there's always the pressure to be better and to always finish better. And so it's always how can we do as well as we did last year, and then and then more. And then you keep building and building and building to become your best self. And that in and of itself there's some external pressure from that, of other people and their expectations of what they want for you. But a lot of it too can just be internal pressure, what you expect for yourself. So I'd say that has also, I think, grown a lot too.
What have you changed in, like, your mindset and lifestyle that you were talking about? What are some examples of that?
Oh, okay. I feel like, and I think you'll really understand where I'm coming from this when I like say one word. I'll say one word and you're going to know immediately. Okay. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Whiplash.
Yes. I know what scene you're talking about.
But like, the Oh my gosh, just like the intensity of everything and the again that pressure. And it's not like I feel like when I was younger, I guess 3 years ago younger, but I kind of like lived by those scenes of like everything needs to be like holy and intense, like 1000% at all times. And I think in some ways that's kind of stayed very similar, like, but it's intensity in a different way. And I think a new found freedom I've allowed myself and given myself permission to explore and find to have some more balance in my life. And when I say balance, because we've talked about this before too, like balance looks very different for everybody. And my balance looks a lot different than your balance, looks a lot different than some random person on the streets balance. But it's a balance that works for me. And I think gives me kind of the mental break that I need sometimes to allow myself to be able to take a step back and then come forward again into kind of like what I'm working on, what we're doing, and keep pushing forward as opposed to kind of finding like becoming a little stagnant or something like that. So I think that's been a really big thing too, is finding little things that make me happy along the way. Cause it's like, it's journey down destination. But with sport, a lot of it is destination and placement and final results. But the journey, I think, when you're doing it day in, day out, can become very like it's that grind, And so being able to find little things that kind of like, we're smelling the flowers a little bit more. We're like enjoying it a little bit more. And I think that's been really healthy.
When Jam came on the podcast, he said something that really stuck with me. He said, taking time off actually keeps you fresh and it keeps you going because it makes you feel more energized, and then you'll be able to perform even better. So something I was telling Mo earlier today when we recorded, I was telling him that I was tracking my productivity just like per hour. And I realized that as I was sleeping less, my productivity went down. What a fucking shocker. So I was realizing I was working 10 hours, but sleeping 4. And I wasn't being as productive as when I was working 7 hours, but sleeping 6. And obviously that's not great sleep. I'm still working on it, but my productivity is better by resting more and working less. And it's an interesting idea to play with because I feel like, especially where you were maybe at 3 years ago, where I'm at right now, it's like do as much work as possible, like volume, volume, volume. And I think you're at a point now where maybe that's not the case.
It's switched. It is totally switched. And also, as a fellow insomniac here, I have struggled with sleep my whole entire life. And that's something I am still struggling with, but we are trying very hard. But recovery has been, I think, the big thing that has changed in my training, specifically over the last few years. Because I feel like Mo and I have gotten to a point now where we understand each other so well. I mean, he likes to say that like he'll know how I'm going to throw based on how I walk over to him before I even start practice. And that kind of like trust and just that familiarity is something that grows over time with the person that you're training with. But there have been so many more moments over the last couple years, I think in particular, where I've shown up and just been so like beat down tired. And I think when I was younger, which also still sounds weird to say, but when I was younger, so I'll say maybe like in my earlier years here at Cal, I feel like I was able to push and push and push way more, but it was also at a lower intensity, at a lower load, and at shorter distances than I'm doing now. Because the quality and the intensity of everything has gone up so much, you need way more recovery time. And so the last couple of years has been a big change, I think, for me and also for coach, just to be like, ooh, like Tuesday, like literally yesterday, I showed up in the morning and I was like, I feel like I am dead. Like my whole body is just like sore and tired. And I was like, I will be good by the afternoon. I can't do this morning session. And I feel like 3 years ago, that would have been like, I'm a failure. I'm going to fail. I'm going to disappoint everyone. This is not who I am. I can't be this. I don't have time for this. This is weakness. Whereas now it's been a lot more of like, this will help make me stronger later. This will lead to a better training session later on. This will prevent injury. This will keep me healthy. And that whole switch has been huge. I feel like it's changed so much with our approaches to training. And which sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, I feel like, but it's also hard. And like taking it even like back to whiplash again, like you feel the need to put so much pressure on yourself and to always be putting that 1000% into it every single time. But that 1000% of, what's the word I'm looking for? Intention can also be put into different activities that still help you. So I think that's been the biggest one. So Jam is right. is basically what I'm trying to say, is that Jam was 1000% right.
Are you happier?
Ooh, I feel like I would say I was super happy 3 years ago at the place that I was in my life then, with the experiences and knowledge that I had. And I am happy now also. So it's like my happiness has grown, but the things that I think define that happiness have also changed.
How would you define happiness today?
I think as like a slightly younger, slightly younger athlete, a lot of it just has to do with the final results of everything that you see day in, day out. Whereas now it's all those like little things and the way that you grow and change, and allowing myself to, I guess, live more life outside of sport, which is something that I was always really scared to do. It's something that I feel like even Mo was nervous about me doing. And I don't really know why. I think part of it was like, you're gonna walk and you're gonna like break your foot or something. And I'm like, I don't blame you. I would do that. But also kind of like always be careful of just all the things that you're doing, because as you said earlier, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And making sure to always put training first and foremost, even when you're in your off season. And so I think looking back 3 years ago, okay, actually, no, scratch that. If Camryn in 2021 were to look at Camryn now and be like, okay, yay, we did all these athletic achievements, but you also like traveled around Europe with a friend. You also like finished a master's. You also like did all these things. You're working now and training. Like it was such like a different sort of life and perspective that I didn't really think I would have had at the time. And for that, I feel like I'm really proud of myself for all the things I've been able to do since then. So I would say that I was happy then, and I am still very happy now, just for the different things that I've been able to experience and the different sort of life that I've been able to build for myself, along with the people like around me.
Something I really took away from my conversation with Mo earlier today was he said that there are good distractions and there are bad distractions. And that was very interesting to me because he didn't say that specifically. That's what I took away. But he said good distractions. And I wanted to talk to him. I emphasized that. And we talked about that. What are some of your good distractions right now? Which is what we're talking about. I'm just looking for examples here. He described it as things that energize the athlete to then continue pushing over and over and over again, rather than the obvious bad distractions, which I just told him, like, I'll say them myself. Partying, alcohol, drugs, substances, poor toxic relationships, etc. Like all of that is obviously bad. But what are some of these good distractions that maybe some people don't take into account that would enhance performance?
Ooh, okay. I mean, it goes into like the things that you love to do and your passions and the way that you can do them without interfering, I guess, with what your main goal is, which, I mean, for me is training. So it's a lot of things that I feel like sound very boring. Like, I love baking. I love reading. I love reading my little like adult romantasy books. Like, always. And it's the little things that take your mind off of what you're doing day in and day out. And I think that the more that you can fit those in to your schedule, even if you do like actually have to schedule them in order to do them, like they're important. And then there's some of like the bigger things to look forward to as well, like my trip with Anna last summer to Europe, or how like I'm gonna do a similar trip with my parents and our cousins after the Olympics this year. And then one of my friends, Kaisa, who's also going to be in Paris, we're going to do a road trip up to Vancouver to my home in September. And being able to plan all those things and be excited about them, like those really do keep you going in a different way. But day in, day out, I think when you can do things that bring you those little kind of like bits of joy and happiness, like I guess they turn out to not be as little as you think they are. They end up being very big, monumental things in your journey. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated. If anything, the simpler, the better. I think that's actually what Coach Durden says as well from swim. Do simple better. And I think that's something that I also like to try and live by, is doing a bunch of just the simplest, easiest things that make me happy and keep me healthy. And yeah.
Interesting. That's super cool. Like, do simple better. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
Smart man.
He is. I'd love to talk to him someday. I haven't talked to him yet.
I hope you get the chance to.
It would be an honor. Playing around with this, though, there's this idea that I really like from this English podcaster, Chris Williamson. He said recently, like on a tweet, it said, "There's no such thing as being overworked, only under-rested." And it stems from this idea from Churchill that says, "Never stand up when you can sit down, and never sit down when you can lie down." And it's like this idea that just reflects the belief in conserving energy and efficiency, suggesting that like one should avoid unnecessary effort and take the opportunity to rest whenever possible. Because by standing when you can be sitting down or lying down, you can minimize exertion and maximize rest, which can be especially important for maintaining productivity and well-being over the long term. Do you feel your performance has gotten better because of all of this?
Sorry, I answered before you even finished.
You're good?
Yes.
I mean, that answers it directly.
Do you feel like yours has too, as your athletic journey has like now changed into running and marathon training? And I mean, you've talked about it earlier too, about how, like your productivity and your efficiency when coupled with recovery, how obviously like the more you sleep and the more recovery you get, the better it gets. But is that something you also believe, that like you can work as much as you want as long as you also rest for the same or as much as you can, like amount of time?
This is something I started doing 10 days ago. So like
not 10 days.
Yeah, 10 days ago. Like, so I actually have to do this still, but for my sleep leading up to the marathon, like I only started caring about my sleep for taper, which I tapered for 2 weeks, like ish. Okay. Yeah. And that's when I was like not setting alarms and going on my runs, because typically I was just setting alarms and my sleep was terrible. Like,
how bad is terrible?
For 4 hours a night I was running a lot. It was an 88-mile week, and I was running and like lifting as well. And I was sleeping 4 hours, which is like terrible. I do not suggest that for anybody. I know that for the elites, that's not that much mileage, but for me it was. And yeah, that was pretty bad. And it was only until recently that I realized that it takes. So this is something I'm actually fascinated by. And I know we've talked about our little Whoop.
Whoop gang.
It's been helping me a lot. Again, talked about this with Mo, about how, at least for me, like this is my idea of you can't improve anything that you're not measuring. Mm-hmm. So for me, something I super stoked about, literally this morning, I texted it to my friend, because I mean, I'm Whoop and Garmin, right? Because I've used this for running. That's the thing about Whoop. My HRV went up. So excited. Like, I'm so excited.
And is that not like the most exciting thing though? When you look and you check and you're like, okay, did I like rest or something? Who am I?
Exactly. And I texted this to a friend. I'm like, wow, shocker. My sleep actually helps my HRV improve. What a concept.
What's your record high HRV right now?
125.
Oh, we're like on par.
Really?
That's so impressive.
Wow. What's your VO2?
That I don't know.
Okay. Mine went up like a point, which I mean is not, my VO2 isn't as impressive, but it went up a point, and that excited me as well. So it's like,
as it should.
But what I took away from all of this, and the reason I'm doing better with my sleep now, this is just how I work. I've started viewing sleep as a challenge. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot of, like, people think it takes a lot of discipline to wake up early. Waking up early is actually quite easy, at least for me. What's difficult is going to sleep early. Okay. So I can set an alarm to wake up in the morning. What was I not doing? I was not setting alarms to go to sleep. And that sounds stupid, but it's like nowadays, like my alarm will go off 8 p.m. and that's like, all right, start winding down. And I'm blocking out from the 24 hours, I'm blocking out 9 hours of just like, all right, 1 to like start shutting down, and then 8 to try and sleep. I never sleep 8, but like 8 to attempt to sleep 8, and then go from there. And I think starting to view sleep as a challenge of like how disciplined can you become has helped me so much, because I started structuring my entire day around sleep now, because waking up to me is so easy. I'll 4 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever it is, I'll do that. But going to sleep early is actually super difficult for me.
I feel like looking at it from a competitive mindset is the most gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss way to manage your sleep.
It
I love
helps
it,
though.
though.
It really helps. Like that's how I work. When it's like the typical like, oh, I bet you can't do this, and it's like, oh,
You're like,
you're
oh,
gonna
and you're like traps pop out. Oh, I love it though. That's so good.
that's what I'm doing, and that's what's helped me a lot right now. And I'm like, this is 10 days ago, where I was like, all right, how disciplined can you be to go to sleep early? Because anybody could say they're disciplined for doing something that's easy for them. But I think discipline is more like, all right, can you push yourself, challenge yourself to do something that you're not good at? And to me, it's like, maybe people think waking up early is being disciplined just because other people can't do it. But I think a bigger challenge for me is, like I said, go to sleep early, because that's what's hard for me.
That's fair.
And that's a good way to view it, I think.
I like that too. I think I'm gonna have to start doing that. And I already do have alarms to go to sleep. Do I listen to them? No, but I have them. It's like the Apple Health notifications.
The
that
sleep
pop
one?
up. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, I should probably listen to that. I feel guilty now when I ignore it though, and I think that's a big step up.
I think just set multiple alarms.
I think I need to do that.
Like I just set so many, and it'll sound like every 5 minutes, like, all right, once I'm ready to go, I'll turn them all off. But just one of those.
If I take anything away from today, it'll be set 18 alarms to go to sleep tonight.
I think it helps. It really
Slay.
does.
Thank you.
Nobody ever reached greatness without struggle. What makes you think you're so special that you don't have to wait in line and show up to work every single day without seeing any results for a long period of time, just like all the other greats did? Where have you struggled in the past 3 years? Because I'm seeing Nike sponsored, I'm seeing headlines here, headlines there, medals here, medals there. It looks like it's all perfect for an outside eye. Where's the struggle?
I feel like over the last 2 years, I'll say last year and this year, so from like 2022 onward, the biggest thing has been like realizing that maybe my mental health is not where it needs to be. And the biggest change that my parents don't actually know about yet. So Slay, this is the announcement to my parents. I have a sports psychologist that I've been seeing now, and it's made a ginormous difference. It has literally changed the game for me in ways I didn't even think that it could. And not to say, okay, that's not to also say that I didn't think that it could make a difference, because I did. I think I was so shocked at the vast areas that I needed help with and didn't realize how, I don't want to say behind, but like how I didn't realize how much I thought I was okay in terms of certain things that I actually had been struggling with for a really long time, and just basically like compartmentalized it and was like, ooh, I'll just deal with this when I retire, when I'm 32 or 33. It's fine. But it just doesn't work like that. And I think now seeing how many other people are recognizing some of their own like struggles and being able to find help and realize it's, you know, all the things, like it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength to find help, and being able to like build yourself up into like the version of yourself that you want to be able to see, you know, in the future, and being all successful and stuff, like definitely is a good thing that I completely agree with. And I appreciate that there were so many amazing figures to do it that helped motivate me to do it as well. Also having good people around me to tell me like, this is something that I think would be good for you. So I think that's been the big thing. I think just with, I don't know, like thinking about my career, where I thought my career was going to be when I was younger, was very exciting. And it still is very exciting, but there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that. And I think just being able to talk through some of those things and other like things that went back right to childhood, because they always go back to childhood, is also an important part of being able to grow up and learn to let things go and move forward. Not necessarily move on, but move forward. And that has been, I think, one of the biggest, most important changes that I've made.
What's the difference between moving on and moving forward?
Because I think to be able to move forward is to accept that it's a part of your life and a part of your past and a part of what's made you who you are. And it's recognizing that those things happen and that's okay. And you just kind of continue to move forward with the knowledge and the experiences that it's taught you. And I think to me, when I think of the words move on, it's kind of like, okay, throw it to the side and then just like keep going kind of thing, which is what I was doing for over 2 decades. So now being able to move forward as opposed to just like throwing it back and like into the back of my brain and being like, I'll deal with that later. I don't need to think about that now. It always catches up. And I think knowing that there could be a time where I could be, who knows, preparing for something big, and I just didn't want to risk those little things catching up and then not knowing how to deal with them, not knowing how to sort of like reel myself back and recognize how much I've grown and changed since, like just over time. And it's, I don't know, I think that to me is the big difference. I think maybe it's just how I perceive the different words, but I like to think of it as moving forward.
I don't know if this is just, again, my brain, but objectively, it's also helping you throw further. Like, it's like, oh, it's a competitive advantage. Let me do it. It's like part of training potentially.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's really cool because it's something I was really inspired by from a fellow training partner to do, is reach out and get help. And it's something that now, talking with Mo, it's so cute. It's so cute because now he'll be like, okay, so now over the next few months as we go up to Paris, we need to make sure we're in peak physical condition and mental condition. Make sure you're talking to that guy. Like, we do love that guy, the sports psych. But it's funny because they've actually met. They've met, and I think they were able to have like a really good conversation and get to know each other. And my first session back after they met, Mr. Sports Psychologist was like, wow, like everything you told me about Mo makes so much more sense now. It's like, yes. But he also is like, wow, what an incredible man. Like, what a life he's lived and what a career he's built. And the things that he does, like, they make so much more sense now, knowing where he's come from and knowing what he wants to see for himself and for you guys. And I'm like, that is the coolest, I think, thing to see, is just when someone is able to understand, I guess, such an important aspect of your life. And to me, Mo is important. He's my family. Like, he's not just coach, he's my family. And the training environment that we have, the training mindset that we have, like, all those things can seem very intense to some people. They can be a lot. And I know Mo likes to say to some of the younger people, if we're ever at the same competition anymore, he's like, do not be around when I'm coaching Camryn. Don't do it. It's going to scare you. And it's just what we've found works for me. And that doesn't necessarily mean it works for everyone, but it works for me. And to have someone that knows you so well is so important. And I also think I just went onto like 3 different tangents. But either way, sports psych is great.
That's what podcasts are for. I am curious, why specifically not tell your parents up until now?
I mean, no reason. I think it was more just there were things I wanted to be able to deal with. Not that they would have, not that they would have asked, and not that they would have judged. I think it's something that they actually would be super happy to hear about. I actually have no doubt they would be, they'd probably be super happy to hear about it. But it was something where I was like, I felt like I just wanted to keep it kind of to myself and keep it a little more private and know that it was mine in a weird way. I don't know why, but it was kind of like I want to be able to deal with some things and know that only like a couple people besides me know about them.
Independent work.
Yeah. And I think that it was good. It kept me kind of like clear-minded, level-headed, and yeah, I think it just worked out kind of in my favor. Not that I like don't tell them things, but I think this was just something where I was like, yeah, like I want to be able to do this sort of on my own and be able to, work through things that way too. And I think it was good. I think it worked out. So
Let's talk about balance.
the lack of it. Okay.
Life is simply a trade-off between short-term pleasure and long-term success. The key lies in conscious decision-making and finding a harmony that aligns with one's personal values and aspirations. Do you think there's such thing as sacrificing for your goals?
Oh, of course. But I think that you definitely have to sacrifice. But I also think that the word sacrifice has so much like weight to it. Like it's such a heavy word that has so much meaning. I feel like they're just choices. Like everyone makes choices. Every single thing you do in your day, you're making a choice. Like you decide to wake up on time, that's a choice. You decide to go to practice, that's a choice. When you're at practice, you decide to put your all into it as opposed to like half-assing it. That is a choice. And then when it comes to other things like, oh, I could like eat out tonight, or I have food at home and I could save money and feel a lot more fueled and more recovered tomorrow instead of going out, even though that'd be easier. That's a choice. Like all of these things to me are just like, they're just choices. And I think you just, I don't know, to me, I look at it as like, what do I value more? Like making a slightly difficult choice now, or knowing that, or like maybe like not reaching my goals and just feeling regretful. Like I want to know that if knock on wood, if I don't reach a goal, it's not because I didn't put 100 million% of myself into reaching that goal every step of the way. Like if something happens, again, knock on wood, if something happens, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and that's life, that happens. But the sacrifices, the choices we make are what guide us on our path towards the goals that we set for ourselves. And I don't know, I think there are some really big choices that I think turn into sacrifices. Yeah, I feel like the bigger choices to me are the sacrifices, whereas the smaller ones day in, day out don't really feel like a sacrifice. They just are.
What are the bigger choices? Like what's an example?
A bigger sacrifice. Even now that you put me on the spot, I'm trying to think of like oh, I almost feel like I have to come back to that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But when I think of like a sacrifice, to me has to be something big. Like to me, it was like I missed one of my best friend's weddings. That was a sacrifice that I had to make because I knew I had to train, and it was also a destination wedding. It looked beautiful. I wish I could have been there, but I didn't get to go. And that was heartbreaking for me. And I definitely know she was sad about it, even though she totally understood why. It's still something that I was sad about. And I will also be, I mean, not that I was going to like potentially necessarily be there like on the day, but she's due to give birth like in a matter of like a week or two. And I will not be meeting that child, and I won't be seeing her for like another like 2 months afterwards. And I think those are the things where it's like, they're choices that you make, but they turn into sacrifices because you realize that there's a lot that you are missing out on in like other people's lives that blend so much into yours. Like these are people I love and care about. I think that's when it turns into sacrifices, is when it involves like other people I love and care about. But everything else concerning just me is just a choice.
What makes it worth it?
I mean, it sounds so simple, but just like, it's just, I think when you finally have that moment of whatever goal it is that you have for self, when you achieve it, and there's just like I don't know if you like celebrate a lot. Do you celebrate? No, and no, nor,
Nor.
nor. But like, I think it's realizing, like for me, and I'm going to assume also for you, in those like quiet moments after you've finally accomplished something that has taken up so much of your life and your mind and your energy for so long, and it's like you fucking did it. Like you fucking did that thing. And for me, like for example, last summer, One Worlds, got to hang out with my mom and our family friend and a bunch of like Anna and Mo and another couple throwers as well. I think it was like Elena and another American hammer thrower, Alex Young, were there. And we were like eating donaires at like 2 a.m. after the competition because I didn't get out of drug testing for like an hour. And I finally got back to the hotel, and quick tangent, quick side story. Our team manager, who was amazing, saw that I was eating these like cakes in the hotel. And for anyone who is unaware, I have like a shit ton of allergies and food sensitivities. And these cakes, they were like chocolate coconut. They were the most delicious thing I've ever had in my entire life. And I was like, I need to be able to take these up to my room and eat them like after the competition. Like I need to be able to eat a platter of these once I'm done competing. And she was like, you like them that much? I was like, yeah, and they're nut free, which is the best part. I can actually eat them and not die. And so she went to the kitchen and asked one of the lovely people working in the kitchen if they had like a little to-go box. And she came back and she was like, okay, now you have to go in. I was like, okay. And so I shoved like 6 of those cakes in there and took them out to my room and like threw them in the fridge. I was like, okay, that's for after I'm done. So after I had gotten back from like having that super late dinner with my family and with Mo and like celebrating and everything, I got back to my room. I like sat on my bed. I couldn't sleep. Sleep was not going to be happening that night. But I took out the container of those cakes and just like sat on the edge of my bed and like was just like ate a cake, like a piece of cake. And I was like, I fucking did that thing. And it's like that moment where you realize that you have actually accomplished the goal that you set for yourself, regardless of how long ago it was that you set it. Like you have done everything that it took to do what you always believed you were capable of. And I think that for me is the moment that makes it so worth it. Is that moment where I get to like sit on the edge of my hotel room bed and eat a chocolate coconut cake and just know that I earned it because I did exactly what I hoped I could do and that I knew I could do.
I think celebrations are better alone, if that makes sense. And it's weird because they say success is pointless if you don't have anybody to share it with. But at the same time, the people you want to share it with weren't there with you along the way. So for me, right after like the marathon, my biggest celebration was the next day sitting down for an hour and just writing. And no, but well, I mean, people saw what I wrote at this point. Not that many though, just because like I turned it into an episode and posted it. But that hour of just me writing to myself and being like, whoa, you did that. That's pretty cool. All right, I don't care about it anymore. Like next, like immediately done next. Like, but that was it. It wasn't the meal we had after. It wasn't people saying congrats. It wasn't people saying, oh my gosh, that's impressive. Like that means nothing to me. Not like it means nothing in terms of the work. Yes, thank you for being nice. Appreciate that. Appreciate support, whatever. Awesome. But in terms of like, wow, that's external validation that I need to continue doing the thing. Like, no, the only reason I even posted, and it's something I was telling you off the record, like before this, is the only reason I'm posting those stories is because I know it helped me a couple months ago. And I'm just hoping that it'll help other people, which is fascinating. Actually, like, I think my biggest flex right now is that I've gotten messages from people saying like, oh, thank you for asking questions on like how to start running from people that are 3 years older than me and 9 years younger than me. So
It's
it's
so
like a
cool,
12-year
Fernando.
gap. It's a 12-year gap, and it's just from a stupid Instagram story, which makes it not stupid, right? But that 12-year gap is like so incredible, and you're doing that just from an Instagram story. So, okay, yeah, that makes it worth it. But to me, it's like the celebration is mostly taking that time, like you were saying, edge of the bed, eating a little cake. That's where it lies, because only you know what you went through. Realistically, like potentially Mo.
I was gonna, I was gonna say, also because I never shut up to him, so he knows everything about my life. But yes, but yes, like you're the one doing it, and I think that's something that he said before as well. Like there's only so much you can do as a coach, and when you get into like when your athlete enters a competition, when they're in competition mode, like you just have to hope that they were able to do everything that you taught them to do, because now they're just doing it on your own. And I think it's so funny that he says too that his role when I'm competing is to be less of a coach and more of just like a supporter and more of like a um just someone to basically be there and be like, you're doing great, sweetie. Like but like by the time you are in there doing the damn thing, like if you like for us at least with between Mo and I, he says like if I have to coach you when like actually coach you when you're in a competition, like it's over. Like you should have been doing these things days, weeks, months beforehand to prepare. Because it just means that either something happened and something went wrong that we can't fix or change now, or you just weren't prepared. And so I think that's yeah. I think it's funny because you can see the moment where it hits him too once the competition's over and like run over. We have so many pictures of us hugging each other, and he like he's cried, and it's so beautiful to like know that like we've been able to do this together. But it's definitely something that he always says is like, I'm not the one who's going to be in there throwing the hammer for you. He's like, you wouldn't want me to.
It's also that all results are a lagging indicator of decisions and actions taken much longer, like before all of that moment. So
The choices and sacrifices, you could say.
exactly. So it's like you already worked for the trophy, for the medal, for the podium, all of these months and years leading up to it. The time of the competition, you're just there to pick up the medal or the trophy, whatever it may be. Like it's that type of mentality of like once you're there, you just have to like it's what 3 more throws that you get from all the thousands of throws that you've done, or 6 throws maybe. But yeah, my bad. But
I
it's
just love that you know about throwing.
of course.
Makes my heart so happy.
But like let's look at it that way. How many throws have you done from Tokyo to Paris? And then you show up to Paris and you're potentially maximum gonna throw 12.
Maximum 2 warm-up throws, 3 in a qualification round to get to the final. And then when you're in the final, it's 2 warm-ups and 3 qualifications to be in the top 8, and then another 3. So you're taking max 8 throws. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of throws, both in practice and in competition, to lead to 8.
So that's my point. Like
It's like similar to how everyone says like you do like, or like I guess easier I guess to comprehend with the 100. Like you train and you train and you train all for like not like 10 seconds.
yeah. That's what I'm trying to get at with you already won leading up to it. You're just there to pick up the prize by the time you show up, which sounds like a terrible thing to say, but I don't think so. I really don't think so. Like you can't just show up there and then do the work the day of, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Like the work has been done. You're just there to show it off that day. If you really think about it.
That's when you get to like have fun
Exactly.
and do your thing.
You get to show it off to everybody else that wasn't there at Edwards or wasn't there in this other field that isn't Edwards in Berkeley.
Shout out Edwards Stadium.
Yeah,
Shout out
Edwards.
Richmond Field Station.
Nobody else was there for the past 3 years. But in 2 days in August, on a random day in August in Paris, it all pays off. And I don't know, I think eventually that doesn't matter. yeah, like going back to the sacrifices thing, I think so. It sounds like a hot take. I don't think it is.
Ooh, I love your hot takes. Hit me.
We'll call it a hot take. All right.
Okay. It sounds spicier.
My hot take is that I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life trade-offs because the price of anything is the amount of life that you're willing to exchange for it, and action only reveals priorities. So everybody has the same amount of time, and whether, oh, no, but I'm a parent and you're not a parent. All right. That your action to being a parent is still reflecting your priorities. Oh, but I'm an athlete, you're not an athlete. Well, your action of being an athlete is still reflecting your priorities. So it's a trade-off for something else. It is the price you're willing to pay for what you want. It's not always going to be fun, but it's just a trade-off. It's not a balance. But I do think it does connect to what we were talking about prior of the better you can rest, the better you can recover, the more energized you are, the better you will work and the better your output will be. But I don't think it's a balance. What do you think?
I feel like I've come to give it a lot more as a balance. So I'm going to disagree with your hot take.
Let's hear it.
But mostly just because I think... Okay, let me go through. I wish I could get everything you just said tattooed on my forearm.
Well, okay, so
But-
let's think about it this way. For the goals that only you know and that only you have leading up for the next 2 weeks, would you say your approach to those goals is balanced? Exactly. Like that's exactly the point, because you want an unbalanced result. So the way to get there is through an unbalanced lifestyle.
It's been balanced in the only way it can be, which is, like we've talked about, like our balance looks a lot, my balance looks a lot different from your balance, looks a lot different from someone else's balance. But it was balanced in the way that, in the only way that I really think I can be balanced in this time, which may not be much, but it's still a balance. I think because if I was only ever just training, I would go insane. And this is something that Mo knows very well. And for me, why I'm so happy that I have so much else in my life that's also not throwing. Like, I'm so happy that I have such an amazing job. I'm happy I'm able to have really great friends and go travel and see them and do a bunch of cool stuff, and that I love to read. Just because if I was only ever just throwing, I would lose it. It would get like so into my head and I would never be able to let it go. And it would like haunt me. And so for me, I need other things in my life. And that is what I call the balance, the healthy distractions, the good distractions, as Mo calls them. So to me, it is a balance, but I also think that's because for me, it has to be. Because if I don't think of it that way, I guess trade-off is a good way to think of it too, I guess. But for me, like if I don't have that, then I know I would not be able to throw. I just wouldn't. It would not work. I would get so wrapped up in every little thing every single day, which is why I actually like, yes, being a student athlete is hard, but I think it's also one of the best things that you could ever do, especially like for an athletic career, because it's giving you something else that's not just your sport, and it's giving you time away from it like every single day as well. Other things to focus on, other things to achieve, something that's not so rooted in just being an athlete, which is important also because I think so many athletes, like their identity is solely rooted in being an athlete. And yeah, I think that is my response to your trade-off. But I do understand where you're coming from, and I do like and can appreciate why you would think of it, like why you think of it as being a trade-off.
And also the balance comes in many different ways, shapes, forms, and sizes, right? Like one of my favorite things from the episode I recorded with Isabel Ivy a while ago at this point was something she mentioned that was a piece of advice from her mother, which was that you have all these different things in your life, but your goal is to be juggling them as if it were like a couple tennis balls. And the goal is to like not drop the balls. So maybe at some point, you have this one in your hand and you're throwing this other one, but the goal is to keep on juggling it over and over and over again. So I like that a lot because it's not a perfectly balanced act, but you just keep it going in that cycle. And currently the way I'm thinking about it is the mind, body, spirit type of connection, not in this like super hippie way or something, but just in like
I'm not judgmental.
I think it's
Just a little bit, but not of that.
I think it's a good connection though, to have like mind, body, spirit when you really think about it. Like mind, it's your work that you're talking about. Body, it's your athletics. Spirit is anything else that fills your cup. And I think
I love the filling your cup reference.
yeah, I think it's good. And I think it's a great metaphor for this type of balance, right? Like,
you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. You can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to think about balance, maybe having 3 separate cups and just pouring water into each and every single one of them at a time.
Changing it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the only way I could accept the idea of balance. And to your point, that would make everybody's balance look different. Of like, oh, this cup is fuller than my cup of spirit is a bit fuller than yours, but yours in athletics is fuller than mine, or whatever the case may be, like regardless of what point it is. But does that make more sense with balance?
Like
or can we agree on that?
I like that.
I came across this post the other day and it did remind me of potentially some of the changes you've experienced over the past couple of years. So we'll see what you think.
Okay.
When they see you grinding relentlessly and pushing your limits every single day, they'll laugh and call you a dreamer. Maybe if you hit a milestone, they'll pat you on the back. But when you're on TV, in the spotlight, and the whole world is cheering your name, they'll chalk it all up, all those years of blood, sweat, and tears, and call it luck. The question I have for you, ever since these big changes have happened in your life, how have your friendships changed? Do you have people being friendlier to you? Do you have people from the past saying like, oh, everything changed for her overnight, or how lucky Camryn is, or anything like that? Have you experienced anything weird, whether it's new people just approaching you because of your accolades or you know?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm very grateful that a lot of like my actual friendships themselves have actually stayed pretty much the same. If anything, they've actually grown, but that's not really because of sport. That's, I feel like, just because I've grown up and come into who I am a lot more, as they also have, and I've just tried to be a better friend over time as well. Speaking to when I was younger and like the intensity of training, and I think for me, I would just like I would pull away a lot from some friends and then be a really bad communicator. I've tried to really hard to be better at that over time, and it's resulted in even better friendships, which I really appreciate. It's interesting. I think there's a lot of people who thankfully like know my story and know where I've come from, and a lot of people who like know my mom. Everyone knows Shari. And because of that, I think I haven't experienced a lot of like, oh, it's just luck. Like, I think enough people know about my like childhood and growing up and the whole experiences that I had there to know that there was a lot that's gone into what has happened now, which I'm very happy about. But there's definitely been like interesting experiences of, like I've had people reach out from when I was younger and be like, hey, just wanted like being very nice, being very, very nice, and being like, I'm super happy to like see how like far you've come and you're doing so well, which is really sweet. I've had a couple instances of people being held like weird.
The negative hate
weird.
social media.
The negative hate social media for sure. But actually, and okay, not as much that, more as like a different thing, and it makes me feel so uncomfortable to say it because it's not something that I would normally say about myself, and I think that's like it makes me feel weird. But I've had people who have approached me because all that they know and all that they care about is like
The result.
and who have like tried to take advantage of that to different degrees. And it's sad to see that you can have like so many different, I guess, reactions to something that is inherently, I think, very, very good. Like being able to like find a passion and grow within it and be able to reach heights that you only like dreamed of when you were younger. Like that's all super great. And then seeing how other people perceive that has been very interesting, especially I think maybe to go back more to the social media thing, just being in a sport that is, I guess, goes against what a lot of people think being a woman in sport is. It has been very telling. It's a lot of like, like I am a woman, I am strong, I am not stick thin. If I was, I would not be able to throw. And just people feeling like they can and want to share their thoughts on that, even when it's very uncalled for and very inappropriate and a little scary. I had someone actually earlier this year message me and be like, hey, like been following your career. I think I saw you on this street and this street earlier today. Is that you? I wasn't sure. And I was like, oh no. Like,
Oh my God.
like that's, I feel like there, it feels even weirder to say it out loud now. Yeah. I'm really happy. That's when like my scooter broke down and I was taking the bus for a little bit. I'm really happy to have a car now. Thank you. So yeah, there's been a lot of very interesting little situations that have happened.
How do you deal with the hate on social media? I am interested in that because it's something that, I mean, I've never experienced. And honestly, from that position, I don't think I ever will.
I hope you don't.
How do you deal with it? Because to some extent, so this is actually funny. On the Spanish channel on YouTube, I get so many comments, but to me, I laugh at them because it's tattooed in my brain from consuming so much content already from YouTube and all these different people that they always say like, oh, I'm getting hate from, I don't know, Johnny 1793 or whatever it is. And there's no profile picture and they have zero followers or whatever it is. And that's so true. Like, at least for me in that experience, when I'd get, fucking this, fucking that, blah, 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 bunch of bullshit. And I'd read that and it's like, yeah, I don't really care. Like you don't mean anything to me. But I think that's totally different to, especially like you were saying, like women in sports go through. And I've heard of this from, I remember when Angelina Anderson was here. She was competing at the U17 level in the CONCACAF tournament. And she was getting like hate comments on Twitter from like a grown up, it seemed like 50-year-old man. And it's like, dude, you're talking to a teenager.
Yeah, it's weird. People are freaking weird. And a lot of people like that feel so entitled to share their opinion. Because I don't know if it's just them feeling like they want to be involved in your journey in some way. I don't know. I get like a lot of like, I feel so bad for people like her who are so young and then have to like not only grow up faster like within their sport to become better, but also to have to grow up faster due to the experiences that they're having online. Like it's just like a part of it that I didn't really think about when Anna and I started working together on my social media. And it's weird now. I think a lot of people I found on mine are very supportive, but then there's always the ones who like fall anywhere on the spectrum between like racist and sexist. And then you get like that weird middle ground where it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why are you commenting like, quote, is this an N-word or a girl? Unquote. Like, this is just unnecessary. And if anything, it just makes me like, I'll kind of roll my eyes and just be like, why? Like, why?
Does it get to you though?
I don't think it does. Not really. Just because like, that's their opinion. whatever kind of thing, like brush it off. But I think at first it was really weird to be like, ooh, these are some borderline harassing comments, like what, or just straight out harassing. Like it's just very uncomfortable, especially to see it just so blatantly out in the open, and to see how like people can just like it like can, what's the word I'm looking for, like snowball. It can really snowball. Or especially a lot of people who like don't understand the sport and then will give me like pointers on everything that I'm doing in my training. They're like, you're doing this wrong. I'm like, thanks, let me talk to my coach real quick about that. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I would say it really affects me, but it definitely makes me stop, I think, occasionally and just read through some of them and be like, what the fuck is your problem?
It's so funny to think about that specifically of, oh yes, I won world champs last year. Thank you for your piece of advice. I really needed to hear that, by the way. Oh, yeah, my coach, no experience in the sport. Like, I definitely need to hear your, please, guys, on this video, comment any piece of advice for my throwing. Like, I would really need it. It would really help leading up to Paris. Come on.
There's a little part of me that's just petty enough that I've come close to responding to people and I have to be like, tone it down. But yeah, I mean, I think it just shows it's less reflective of you and more reflective of them, of course, and their beliefs and what they think and so on, so forth. That's their problem. But it's just weird. It's just weird. And it's kind of gross too, especially when you get some of the DMs and you're like, ooh.
Something I've learned recently that has a lot to do with that. To me, whenever I feel like criticizing anyone, I just have to remind myself that not everybody in this world has had the same opportunities, advantages, and privileges that I've had. So when I see all these people like potentially commenting on your stuff, for you to reply to them would mean that you have to drop yourself back down to their level. And that's not who you are. And also you have to remind yourself of, how bad does their life have to be to create a spam or burner account to then drop hate comments on these people's accounts that they've never met? How terrible does your life have to be? And when you empathize in that sense, because that is terrible, like objectively, what does somebody have to be going through to want to willingly do that, to take the time to go on people's posts and talk shit? I feel sorry for them. And I think it's easier to attempt to empathize with them than it is to, oh, let me reply to them. Let me drop myself down to their level.
Hating
and
takes
also,
too much energy.
But also on that, let's go back to trade-offs. If this is a trade-off that it is required to then inspire younger girls to follow in your footsteps, is it worth it? Is that the price you have to pay, dealing with a couple of hate comments to then inspire younger girls, younger people, younger boys to follow and achieve things that you have? Is it worth it then?
All of this? Oh, yeah, 1000%. All this is easy. All this is easy. But yeah, I think in the moment it's always just weird. And then some of the other things you get sent are like weird. Like Anna texted me once. She was like, someone just sent you a homemade porn video. And I was like, that's, I didn't really, no, thank you. But all of that, like, that's the easy part. It's all like, there's just like, it's online, you know? And I think if anything, I've really come to take some of the stuff online, especially like this, just like not so seriously. And I think that's, like you said, like sometimes you just have to laugh. And I think that's what makes it just a lot easier sometimes too. But if it's them writing these things and commenting and blah, 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 like that's not going to keep me from posting. It's not going to prevent me from continuing to do my job and do what I want to do. And whether or not that's their intention, whatever. Like that's them. That's their own kind of thing that they're dealing with. But for me, it's just I continue, like you move forward. You keep moving forward. And if it's the thing that helps to like get more outreach to younger people, like I think one of the coolest and most amazing experiences is when I've had a couple parents come up to me and be like, I saw your posts and I got my child to start throwing. And it's like a weird sort of like, it's amazing, but it's like a weird sort of like, oh, we've like come full circle kind of moment. And for that, I would take any of these comments like any day, just to know that like one person has been able to start doing and like a sport period. But the fact that it gets to be like that they found the love for throwing or like hammer throw specifically, like that's so beautiful. And all the other stuff is just, it's just stuff.
To connect all of that, for sure, I think something that helps me and potentially could help you is imagining that person saying it to your face. So for me, like a metaphor that I like to use is if you're competing on the Division 1 level, you're not going to take advice from somebody playing on the club team at the school. You're just not, because you're only going to take advice from people that have accomplished what you want to accomplish.
Mm.
Everything else is just outside noise. And it's not to be a dick to like the club teams here at Cal. Like, you just don't know what it's like to compete in other certain levels, in the same way that I would not give you advice on how to compete at the Olympics because I don't fucking know.
I still listen to it from you.
But
yeah,
it's different. Yeah. It's not about the Olympics. It's other things, you know?
I feel like you must have heard the quote then, like, you would never take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from.
Exactly. Spot on. Like, it's that. And I think, like, to shift it on a more positive tone, which is always better.
Love.
What have you benefited from with this social media journey? And I do remember this specifically because something that I enjoy doing actually is looking at people's social media numbers before and after they have something go on in their life, because there's two sides to content creation, right? Or to even fame. There's fame by working on your social media content over and over and over again. And then there is fame on social media because you did something in real life. So I'll give you an example. I think your content for sure helped, but the last time we recorded, you were at 5,000 followers. I remember that. Totally.
Was it actually 5?
You were at 5,000 followers the last time we recorded. And if you look at everything you've accomplished since, yes, your videos have helped and you've had plenty go viral, and that's always good and that helps. But you've also accomplished so much in real life that has enhanced that. And then another example is my former teammate, Drake Challenger.
Yeah.
He had a great game this championship almost a year ago this time.
I remember that. I literally remember too. I remember looking at it being like, that's a lot of likes on that post.
The penalties.
Yes.
It's from the penalties. And like when he stopped a couple penalties in the shootout, and then he scored his own, and then Messi posted him and skyrocket. Like it just changed overnight. And then, I mean, there's this American tennis player right now, Emma Navarro, that doubled her following from playing well at Wimbledon. And it's just like little things I tend to notice of like, let me pay attention. You just did this amazing thing, and I follow the person or I see their account, and then I see how they blow up. So with all that being said, in the past 3 years, you've done plenty of great things. I think I'm pretty sure the one you least care about is a number of followers on your social media, but I'm sure there's benefits to that as well. So what has that been like for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, again, big shout out to Anna, who has the creative brain. She is the creative director behind the Rogers_Camryn Instagram page. And I'm like, she's the best. Like, I don't know. I've learned so much from her and just from being involved in it more. But like, I still remember when she came up to me in the year leading up to Tokyo, and she was like, your social media is terrible. And I was like, thanks. So, but she was like, you could do so much more with this. Like, you could have such a bigger platform. You could reach out to way more people, even if it's just you just want to talk about throwing. There's so much more you could do with it. And seeing how much that has changed now to go from like 5,000 to now 131,000 followers. And like, it's crazy. I think there's like definitely get reached out to by more brands, which is nice. It definitely, I think, helps to see how much growth we've had on the platform, how that's changed some of the like sponsored deals and what those actually look like, as opposed to it now being like, here's some product. It's now like, what is your rate for one post. And I'm like, let me ask my agent really quick. And I'm like, what's my rate?
You're like trying to play it cool of like, oh, actually, I don't take these messages. My agent does. And then it's like, Anna, help.
help. But it's weird, but it's also super cool. But I think being able to showcase more of like myself, my personality, and Anna being so good at showing those parts of myself as well, like I feel like that was probably like a really cool and part of maybe the reason why I was able to like have like do a Nike photo shoot earlier this year in Toronto and have more cool experiences like that are like they only brought in athletes to do it. And so they brought in like I think it was like not three. There were like a bunch of like a handful of other Canadians and like an American, all like very accomplished, very great people. But I feel like that's something that also like could have helped with that, and definitely was great once they like posted about it, and then we got to post about it. It's like back and forth, and you know it helps bring more, I guess, like awareness and like meaning to some of the things that we do. Just knowing that like the kinds of people and the audience we've been able to foster who are able to see all of these cool adventures and experiences, and then just the things, like all the things. So it's definitely helped a lot. I definitely owe Anna a lot, and I'm also curious to see how it changes in the next couple weeks.
That's
I don't
something
know.
I was going to say. I mean, I'm going to say it here right now.
Okay.
It is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I'm willing to bet that in the span of 3 weeks, your following will go much higher.
You think so?
Oh,
You think so?
I'd place the bet if I could. Like, it would make sense. It would just make a lot of sense. I'm curious. So it helps the business side to being a pro athlete, which is also something that's different between these 3 years. It's your marketing to your personal brand, which is your business, I guess.
Yeah.
But in terms of friendships, relationships, connections, has that helped at all? Is social media something that's helping you do that, to meet new people that are good to have around, that don't have any other intention?
I think it's kind of funny because like as an athlete, you travel all over the world, you go to so many different competitions, you meet so many people, and I feel like it's been this amazing sort of like way to keep up, like updated on everything that these people are doing. Otherwise, like I don't know if we would talk, you know? But it's also really funny when you actually get to like go the opposite way. It's really cool when you get to meet someone that you've only ever seen on social media. And I had that experience about a month ago when I was in Finland. He is so nice. He is so cool. I love him. So he was an Olympic, he's an Olympic champion in the javelin. His name is Neeraj Chopra. He won in Tokyo. And he's also like the nicest person I've ever met. And I've followed him now for like 3 years since Tokyo. I had never met him. I think I kind of saw him very briefly when we were in England for the Commonwealth Games in 2022. But we had never really like crossed paths or anything. And so I was in Finland for a competition in like mid-June. And I was doing like my little shakeout. I was going to be competing the next day, and I couldn't get my hammer case to open. Like something had gotten weird about it on the flight, and it like was not opening for some reason. And Neeraj was there with his coach and I think his physio, and they were also doing like a shakeout kind of thing. And I was like, excuse me, like we've never met before, but would you please save my life? And he like ran over, he like sat on, he was like maneuvering the case around, he finally got it open, and I was like, I love you. And then we just got to chat a little bit, and then for the next like 2 days that we were there on the hotel, he would like come up and be like, hey, like what's up? And then we actually got to talk, and I'm like, it's so cool to actually get to meet you, because I've only ever known of you or known about you or seen you on Instagram. And so now to get the chance to know you and to like know that you're like a super sweet person and have that experience, like I think it makes the community feel like so much like that much closer. When track and field, I feel like is already a pretty cool and pretty tight knit community. I think compared to probably some other sports, like everyone knows each other, everyone's very nice, and to also know that there's some really amazing human beings behind like the profiles that you see, like it's I don't know. I think it adds so much more to it, and so I think that's a really fun thing about social media is like when you get to connect with people that you meet through it and then keep updated on their life, but also then when you get to meet people you've only ever seen on social media. It's weird. It's like, oh my God, you're real.
Totally. Like that seems like such a cool experience of getting to connect with people that are in your similar shoes, but there's very few people in your shoes. Like, again, referencing Coach Mo, he was talking about how many people there are that can throw. I'm forgetting how many meters it was specifically, but he was saying that in North America, in your position, there's like 5 women. And like, it's how are you going to be able to relate with many people when there's like 5 women that know what it's like to be in your shoes? And then it's like, well, there's more people. They're just across the world. How do you connect with them? Social media.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty special, it's a special experience that you get to have. And I think my relationship with a lot of other athletes has changed too over the last few years.
How so?
Actually. Which going back to social media, like I feel like especially being younger, I was only ever a follower, and now I feel like I'm actually like I know a lot of these people.
I told you that
crazy.
3 years ago when I noticed that the biggest change, I don't know if you remember this, but I told you I think the biggest change from being second in the world 2 years ago this time, from where you were back then, is that now people are looking up to you. You're no longer looking up to them, but you hadn't made that switch in your head yet. And I'm curious to ask you this. I don't want to go off topic because I am interested in how it's changed your relationship with athletes, but I've only heard that it takes about 2 years to adapt to your success. So like people will be like, oh my gosh, you're Camryn Rogers, you're a world champion. And in your head, it's like, no, I'm still the same person I was, but these people only know you for this. So they're like, whoa, like that's Camryn, that's the Olympian, that's the world champion. But in your head, you're like,
I'm just Jenny from the block.
is that the case?
I mean, definitely still. I think there's like being able to do the sport and try to have an impact in it and on the community is something I aim to do and strive to do every single day. And being able to connect with so many more people through social media and through camps that we do. And I don't know, just reaching back to my own community at home and, like being able to meet some of the younger throwers and bring more people into throwing. Like that's what I still think of as like my role within this sport, as opposed to like all the things that we've done. It's more like, oh, like I'm part of this really great community and I get to be surrounded by a lot of people who I look up to, and I still fangirl to their faces, which freaks them out. But but it's like, oh my God, like again, same meet in Finland. Oh man, Anita Ladarchik, who's the world record holder in women's hammer. So 3 years ago in Tokyo, we had one session where we were training at the same time, and I remember looking over to her and looking back to Mo, and he's like, just stay calm, just stay calm, stop freaking out. And I'm like, it's Anita Ladarchik, and he's like, stop it. So he's like, you can fangirl when you're done. You need to pull yourself together right now, Camryn. And then last year when I was doing my first like Europe, like pro season European tour, I like got to talk to her, and she's Polish. She speaks a little bit of English. But I was like, I've always looked up to you. You're one of my all-time idols, and like thank you for everything that you have and continue to do within this sport. And she was like nodding and smiling. We got to take a selfie with the group together. And now when I saw her like a month ago, we see each other, we like hug. I hug her coach, and it's like so friendly. And even though like we're competitors, but it's like, this is like, I could never have imagined like even just like being in the same space as her. Like 3.5 years ago. And now I'm like, we're like hugging, and she was like going up, I think, to her room at one point. I passed the elevator and I was like, oh my God, Anita, you're so cool and I love you and you're so beautiful and you're such an icon. Oh my God, bye. And she was like laughing as the elevator doors were closing. And to know how much is like, that's huge. Like, this is one of my childhood dreams that's happening like in the moment. Like, it's wild. And it's one thing that I don't think I really think about that much, or it's hard to see when you're like in it every day and you're like, oh, like this is what my career is at now, like this is where I've gotten to, and now I'm like, oh my God, no. Like, this is wild. And I don't know, it's cool, and it makes me feel like, as opposed to having like crazy imposter syndrome in Tokyo, now I feel like I'm a like more part of the community now, which is also super nice to see.
Let's go back to what you were saying about your relationship changing with athletes. What was that about?
More so like this.
Okay.
More so like, I feel like I know more of them now as opposed to just knowing of them, which is kind of fun. Especially when you see each other like around the hotel or like around villages, and you just run into them, you get to talking, and it's again one of those like, oh my God, you're a real person kind of things, where there's still a part of my mind that like fangirls, because I'm like, oh my God, it's so and so. Oh my God, here are their stats. And I don't know, it's just it's a change that's really nice, because I don't know, like I feel like it's been a very short, like the last 3 years feels like Tokyo to Paris, crazy big changes, but it feels long, but on the other hand doesn't, like it feels like it's such a short period of time, like it's only 3 years. It's not even a full Olympic cycle.
I'm sure it's also extremely weird for you because you look up to them, but you are the reigning world champion. And that's, I'm sure, so weird to think of. So a recent example of this is right now, Wimbledon just happened as we're recording, and Carlos Alcaraz defeated Novak Djokovic for the second straight year in that tournament. And in the post-championship interview, they asked Carlos, like, well, you just became the sixth man in Open era to win the English Channel double, which is like he won the French Open and Wimbledon. And he just like, obviously he's Spanish, so his English isn't perfect. It's good, but it's not perfect. And I think, especially as a Spanish speaker, I could tell he said something that he didn't necessarily mean. So he said, I don't consider myself a champion like them. And the crowd just went like, what are you saying? You literally just won the championship. But he was saying like, no, I don't consider myself to be at the level of the Djokovic, of the Federers, of the Nadals, because they've done so much. And you look at this guy and he's 21. And
God, he's so young.
He's 21. He has, I believe it's 4 majors now. And he's like, yeah, in my head, I'm not at their level. And I'm sure it may be similar to you, because in a way,
like those are the legends. Like that's legendary status.
But I'm sure simultaneously they are thinking, oh, that's the new champion right now. That's the new girl. That's like who I want to beat. And that's who I want to come back and say, oh, I'm still here competing type of thing. Like, it's that weird balance of they respect you and they're trying to compete with you, and you respect them, but you idolize them. It's like a weird type of thing.
I think who was I talking to? I was talking to someone yesterday. Was it yesterday? Oh, I was talking. Yes. Okay. I was talking with someone yesterday who said, we were having like a fairly similar conversation. And they said, it's such a huge compliment when someone who is so good regards you with such high respect and wants to beat you. And it was one of those like, just like kind of like mic drop moments where I was like, holy shit.
It's the biggest compliment they can give you.
I was like, that was like poetry out here. But I feel like that really, like, to add to this conversation, I think that's sort of, I guess, the way that maybe I've started to think about it without realizing it, is them seeing me as competition, and then me coming into this professional throwing space and this highly competitive space and being like, no, I am here. Like, we are all fighting for the same goal. I am here for a reason. I'm here for a purpose, and to be on that level with them now, it's kind of weird. But then also to finish the the competition and be like, I love you guys so much. Like, you're so cool. But it creates like it's fun, and it keeps everything so fun, and it keeps everyone so friendly. I think for women's hammer specifically, it's like a really cool sort of group that we have, where we have all of these women who are just really, really good. Like, we right now, like, competing this year, myself included, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 out of the top 10 in history who are competing
So
all
it's not
together,
5 out of 8 billion. It's 5 out of history.
all at the same time. But for us to also be able to finish competition and be like, you are so awesome and congratulations, and I saw you did this earlier. That's so cool. Like, I think it brings more meaning to the sport. Like, it's definitely like we're there to compete, but but it's also nice to know that I can consider these people like friends. And it's so funny. There was an interview I did after one of my meets this year where the interviewer was like, okay, you could ask any athlete for $100. Who are you calling up? And I was like, and it was right after I finished. And I was like, Deanna Price, who is an American hammer thrower, who is so nice. And I was like, ooh, like, I don't know if we're close like that. I don't know if she'll think that's weird. And I saw she commented under the post. She was like, Camryn, I would give you $1,000 if you asked for it. I was like, yes. But that's kind of the relationship that we have. And I think it's so sweet. And I think it's cool. And it's something that I didn't necessarily expect, but it's something I'm very grateful to now be seeing, now that I'm amongst, I guess, some more of these throwers.
I think that's one of the things that personally motivates me the most. This idea that the better you become, the better you attract. It seems like it's true. And not that my current friends aren't good or that your current friends aren't good, but in terms of like what people have accomplished and what you can learn from them and just becoming better, because I do believe in this idea of you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And like, if you can continuously improve, not maybe those 5, but like your surroundings, the better you will become. And to me, it's so exciting, this idea of the better you become, the better you attract. And especially right now, I wrote this recently, and it's weird because I'm sure maybe at some point you went through this, and it's a question I want to bounce off with you because, like I said, it motivates me to think that the better I become, the better I'll attract. But for now, it's like I've struggled to find people close to me that are on a very similar path. But there's a plethora of people that just aren't and will never be, which nothing wrong with that, just different values. So instead of looking for synonyms, it's easier to look for antonyms. And honestly, it's just like seeing people and being like, oh, that's what I don't want to be like, because I don't have many people that I can look at and say realistically, oh, that's what I want to be like. At least people that are close to me. I can look at people on social media. I could see people doing amazing things, but in my surroundings, people relatively close to me, it's much easier to point right now and say, that's exactly what I don't want to do. That's exactly who I don't want to be, than it is to say, oh, like that's exactly the type of person I want to be. I do have those. I am extremely grateful for those people, but it's not that I'm jealous. Jealousy is not the right word, but I can't wait for the day when I become better and therefore attract better in a similar situation that you're in. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, oh, I can't wait to be in their shoes, etc., and on and on and on. It's like it's an infinite game, I guess.
I think so. But also, when you recognize that you're carving that path for yourself, that you're doing what it takes, that you're getting yourself there, and you get closer each and every single day. I think I don't know, like it's cool to look at the little changes that come along the way with like the people that you surround yourself with, and the things that you do day in, day out to achieve your goals. But when you can recognize the things that you don't want to be like and know more of what it is that you're aiming for, the kind of, I guess, the energy that you want to have around yourself, I think you're showing respect to yourself, you're showing respect to your craft and what you want to do into your future. And that's the kind of like self-growth that you learn, like you have to come to appreciate over time. And so, I don't know. I mean, I do agree with you. I think it can be a lot easier to be like, okay, that's not like I don't want to be like that person. I want to be like so and so. But I don't know, like when you find those people that are, even if they're not doing something that, like even if they're doing something completely different than you, but they have that same sort of passion, like that's those rarities, like that's when you lock them down.
Agreed. Totally. Like it's not about what you're doing, it's how you go about it and why you go about it. And that's exactly the goal. And every single rep, every single conversation, every single thing that you do in your life, the better you become, the better you attract. So it's a nice thing. I heard this Arnold Schwarzenegger quote this morning that said he was excited about every single time he had to squat because it got him closer to the championship. He thought about every single rep as a step closer to the championship. So to me, it's like, oh, like, yes, was I tired in between recordings today? Totally. But every single rep, every single energy will get me closer to something else. Something I'm struggling with right now is like the editing process. But to me, it's like every single time I edit, I'm improving over and over and over again. And Mo was talking about this earlier. He was telling me that every single time I go on a run, I am changing my body. And I don't think a bit about it that way, but I am. And he's telling me like, you don't see it, but you are changing your body every single time you go out there. And obviously it takes some time to compound and then you'll notice it. But every single time, physiologically, you are changing your body. So I think if I can view things that way, of like, oh, I'm stacking the bricks every single day, that helps so much.
I agree. It's knowing that you are making a difference even if you can't see it. And it's believing in the journey, believing in the whole process. I love that. God, Mo's so smart.
A Robert Greene quote that I want to bounce off of you and just to get deeper into everything.
Mm-hmm.
Think back on the moments when you felt deeply and personally connected to an activity. Think about the pleasure it brought you. In such activities are signs of your true purpose. Do you remember your first happy memory with hammer throwing?
I actually do. I do. And with learning about it and actually doing it. And if you can believe it, they were both on the same day. And if you can extra believe it, it was on the first day that I learned what hammer throw was.
Let's hear it.
But because I started sport like a little bit later, I think, than a lot of other people. Like I was 12. And I compare that to like people who start gymnastics when they're like out of the womb, you know?
People that start playing soccer when they're 2.
Like that. And I like never doing a sport. Like I had never done a sport. I was in that, ooh, who am I really? Like angsty preteen phase. And, and I think at that point I really wanted to find a place where I belonged and find a community and learn what it meant to like work towards something in my life. And I think even if I couldn't put it as eloquently as I just did when I was younger, I think that's exactly what I was looking for. And so I did not know anything about throwing until the day that I literally went out to the first practice of the new year because a bunch of my mom's friends and clients were like, come try track. And thankfully they told me to come try track. And I happened to meet my very first throws coach. He was like the first person I met. And he brought me out to watch everyone's practice. And I think the first time that I fell in love with a sport period was when I saw everyone practicing and how friendly and how welcoming they all seemed toward each other. Because that felt like the kind of group that I was really looking for myself. But the moment I fell in love with hammer throw was when he told me to like throw it. Like that first day, he was like, just take a throw. And I was like, oh, I don't really know if I want to take a throw. He's like, just take the throw and we'll see what happens. And so I picked it up. I was on the sidewalk, right? I like tossed it behind me and I was like, that probably looked awful. And it went about 2 meters, slay. And he and he looked at me and he was like, okay, I think we can work with that. And I remember when I let go of the hammer because that was the first moment in my life where I really felt empowered. Empowered in my own physical capabilities, empowered in like doing things I didn't think that I could do, empowered in knowing that I thought, like, I was like, I know I did this terribly, but I know I can get better. And then hearing his response and then knowing that I could improve. And I think that was like the second sort of moment of falling in love. It was falling in love with sport as a whole first, and then falling in love with hammer throw when I got to like take that very first throw.
It became a metaphor for your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
From the very beginning.
That's powerful. That story of finding a craft. And I talk about this with my friends all the time. It doesn't matter if it's piano lessons. It doesn't matter if it's hammer throwing. It doesn't matter if it's podcasting. It doesn't matter if it's writing, if it's whatever it may be. Though I think everybody in this world should have something, a craft that they can personally develop through. It doesn't matter what it is. It only matters that you work on it over and over and over again. And then falling in love with that progress is what gives you some sort of purpose even.
I could not agree more. I think one of the most beautiful things that we get to experience as human beings is meeting a fellow person and then seeing their eyes light up when they talk about something that they love. Because even if you don't know what the fuck they're talking about, you know that it's something that they have worked toward for longer than you could probably ever even imagine. And it's something that they care so deeply about that is a part of them, like right down to their soul. And when they get to share that with you and they get to entrust this new knowledge with you and you get to have this this whole experience together, like I think that's one of the most incredible things that you can experience as a person in your life. And then being able to do the same thing with them, sharing something that you are super passionate and excited about. And it literally doesn't matter what it is. Like if asterisks, heavy on the asterisks, if I ever have children, I would actually, I think, be okay if they didn't do athletics. Like if they didn't do a sport, I'd be okay if they didn't do track. I would think I'd be okay if they didn't do sports, but I would want them to find something, anything that they loved, and I would be happy about it. Just because, as you said, it's the journey of self-discovery and progression.
I've been wanting to share this with you for the longest time, and I've waited for this exact moment. Do you know who Charles Bukowski was?
I know there's a song named Bukowski. I don't. Is he an author?
He was a writer.
Okay. I knew one thing, but I actually don't know who he is. I'm really sorry.
He has this poem, plenty of poems that are amazing, but he has this one that's called So You Want to Be a Writer. A bit long. I'll read it to you.
Okay.
And I'd love to get your thoughts.
Okay. I'm in it for the experience.
If it doesn't come bursting out of you, in spite of everything, don't do it. Unless it comes unasked out of your heart and your mind and your mouth and your gut, don't do it. If you have to sit for hours staring at your computer screen or hunched over your typewriter, searching for words, don't do it. If you're doing it for money or fame, don't do it. If you're doing it because you want women in your bed, don't do it. If you have to sit there and rewrite it again and again, don't do it. If it's hard work just thinking about doing it, don't do it. If you're trying to write like somebody else, forget about it. If you have to wait for it to roar out of you, then wait patiently. If it never does roar out of you, do something else. If you first have to read it to your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your parents or to anybody at all, you're not ready. Don't be like so many writers. Don't be like so many thousands of people who call themselves writers. Don't be dull and boring and pretentious. Don't be consumed with self-love. The libraries of the world have yawned themselves to sleep over your kind. Don't add to that. Don't do it. Unless it comes out of your soul like a rocket. Unless being still would drive you to madness or suicide or murder. Don't do it. Unless the sun inside you is burning your gut. Don't do it. When it is truly time, and if you have been chosen, it will do it by itself, and it will keep on doing it until you die or it dies in you. There is no other way, and there never was.
Wow. I feel like I need to read more Bukowski now. I feel like for the first half, I kept waiting for the but. Don't do it, but don't do it, except. And it's like, no. If you don't have a passion for it, don't do it. And if you're doing it for anything other than yourself, don't do it. I think what I loved about that poem, actually, relating it to my own experience, was I feel like I started off throwing, and I loved it, obviously. But I think there were a lot of reasons I loved it that weren't necessarily just because it was something I found that I loved. I loved it because there was a part of me that knew I loved it because it could help me go to college, that it could help me like see the world, that it could help build a career. And then once I got older, and especially I think when I came closer to graduating college and being like, oh, I'm about to start my whole ass adult life. And all of these, like I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to do all these things. It has to be so much deeper than what it can do for you. And knowing that I feel like this sport has given me everything. Like I know for a fact that I owe this sport nothing. I owe it nothing because it was able to give me everything in my life, I feel like, up until now. My sense of purpose, my sense of belonging, of community, of life, of wonder, of adventure, of growth and perseverance and discipline. And I think knowing that it was able to do all these things for me, but that those things didn't define my love for it was an important part of recognizing how much deeper my love for it went. And yeah, there were things that hammer throw has done that have changed my life. Like I'm always grateful that I was able to go to college because of it. And that my very first coach when I was like 14, funny enough, was like, there's a coach at Michigan that I might want to talk to about you. His name's Mo Satara. And I was 14. And knowing I've been able to build this life and make so many friends and do all these things because of it. And knowing that that was a big part of my love for it too at one point. Bigger than I'd probably like to admit. but knowing that my love for it goes so much deeper than that I could retire tomorrow from this sport. I won't, but I could retire tomorrow and every single year and think of it every single day for the rest of my life. And every single year, watch Worlds, watch the Olympics, follow smaller meets that I love going to, follow NCAA championships, follow the team here at school, at Cal, and follow my club team that I grew up with, and that I just want to see how much more it can grow outside of me. And I just have so much love for Hammer. And it's a love that I think can exist regardless of whether or not I'm actively doing it. I think to find something that you love in life is special and so rare, but to find something so early, especially, is something that I probably would never be able to thank whoever is up there enough for. Because I don't know, like there's, like I said, it's given me everything. I think I said my saying it correctly before. I owe the sport everything and it owes me nothing. There we go.
I didn't want to interrupt, but yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I owe the sport everything and it owes me nothing. Your first time you were like, that doesn't sound right.
But it all makes sense. And it's truly important to find something, whatever it may be, whoever you may be. It's important to find a medium through which you can express yourself for the sole purpose of expressing yourself. It doesn't matter what it is, but the means to it must be the means to its own end. Because you can do many things. You can work a job as a means to money, and that money will help you feed your family, to buy a house, to do this, X, Y, Z. But when you can find something, when the sole purpose is doing the thing, that becomes a happiness circle. When it's the means to its own end, that's what happiness is to me. There's nothing like singing in the shower. There's nothing like getting coffee on a Saturday morning. There is nothing to me like sitting down and having these conversations for hours and hours and hours uninterrupted. When you can find these things, whether it's playing the piano, playing the guitar, throwing a hammer, going for a run, playing soccer, watching sports, whatever it may be, when you can do something that disconnects you from the world and it serves quite literally just as a means to its own end, to me, that is happiness. And I try to look for that in my friendships, in the activities that I do. And I think that's the biggest hack. Like something that I never had with soccer was I did view soccer as a means to an end. Not to get somewhere.
I was going to ask.
But to me, the result mattered so much. And something I had to be reminded of over and over and over again was don't think about the result, just go out there and play. And that's something I'm learning through running. I'm not even a year into running. And that has helped me find an activity that's an athletic activity that's a mean to its own end. Soccer for sure taught me so many different life lessons. Love the sport, love watching it. But I was always thinking about the result. If my team lost, I would not say a word for 24 hours when I was in high school. I did not want to see anybody. I did not want to talk to anybody. I would get pissed off, and that was that. And right now with running, my thing is just to maximize my potential. There is no goal. I just want to keep on going over and over and over again. And it's a means to its own end. How far can I go? My literal goal with running is just to discover my physical capabilities and limitations. I just want to get to that point where it's like, all right, that's how far my body and mind can go. How fast can I run a marathon? How far can I run? How much is my body capable of? And once I reach the limit, I'll stop. But until I get there, day in, day out. And that's what I love about it. And I never had that with soccer. I think to an extent, the podcast is similar. My favorite thing about the podcast is what we're doing right now. I haven't considered how long we've sat down and talked. I am not thinking about checking my phone. I'm not thinking about having to go to the gym later tonight. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about my flight tomorrow. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm here. I'm present. And that's it. It's hard when I'm editing, when I'm posting, when I'm doing all that, because that's the extra work. That is the means to the end that allows me to continue doing these conversations. And I potentially do fall into the trap of caring finding ways to get more views and to expand the project. Like sometimes I fall into that trap. But when I'm here, like this moment being here is is why I do it. And I think the more people can look for that, and not only look for it, but find it and stick with it, the better life is. And I don't know, I feel sad and sorry for people that don't have that, but I would just encourage others to look for it until they do. Because I do believe, and I think that there is no but in the Bukowski poem, because everybody does have that. Everybody does. You just have to find it. And once you do, attack it with everything you have. Like, to me, if it sets your heart on fire, chase after it with everything you have. Doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter what people will tell you, their opinions, their thoughts, their preferences. It doesn't matter. Like, if it sets your heart on fire, whether that's an activity, whether that's a job, whether that's a vocation, a relationship, a friendship, chase it. Oh, but I don't think that's good for you. It doesn't fucking matter. It's for me. Yeah. It's not for you. And I think it's that simple.
I love it. I love the way that you described it too. And I also appreciate your sharing of your own journey between what soccer was to you and for you compared to what running is now. And how the things that you're looking for, that you're getting from it, have changed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's just different.
With soccer, I was much more competitive. With running,
which is interesting actually to hear, considering some of the goals that you're setting for yourself, that I'm super excited about for you.
Yeah, it's weird because what's different about soccer and running is that running is just you versus you.
I was going to ask if the team aspect made a difference in it for you too.
It changes everything. It changes everything. And I think something that I will want to do with my kids for sure is to put them in two separate sports. One team sport and one individual sport. Because I think there's so much to learn. I think had I had a running career in high school, even if I didn't push far, ran in college, that would have helped my mindset so much in soccer. Because it would have forced me to think, how can I improve, not how can I help my team improve, which are two separate things. Because in soccer or in team sports, you have to push the team to be better, but you also have to push yourself to be better. And by pushing yourself to be better, you aren't necessarily helping the team to be better. Those are two very separate games within the same game. But when you are running, even if you are competing on a team, the better you run, the better the team does. That's it. So you just have to focus on yourself. That's the difference here for me. For me, it's, all right, I'm pushing myself, but there is no winning and losing. There isn't. And it's not playing an opponent. It's running against the course and running against the time. And it's just on me. And the beauty comes from 13, 16, 26 weeks of prep in order to get to that race, rather than having to play an opponent every day on a weekend. So that's the difference. Back to you. Another Robert Greene quote that I really like. Embrace your strangeness. Identify what makes you different. Fuse those things together and become an anomaly. What makes you different? What makes you a special athlete? What is your competitive advantage in your field?
I feel like Mo would have an answer right away. I feel like
he has one, but I won't tell it to you until I hear it from you.
I think for me, specifically in my sport, one of the things that has helped me, I think, progress over time and made my own journey what it is not like the lifting or the speed or any of that. It's the feeling I have with the hammer. It's the connection I have with the implement itself. Because in a way, you kind of have to work as a team with the hammer. It's like dancing. Hammer throw is just like dancing.
It's a skill.
It is. And the hammer becomes your partner in that dance. And whereas a lot of the other throwing events, they're right in your hand. Shot put, right in your hand. Discus, right in your hand. Javelin, right in your hand. With hammer, you have a lever, which actually benefits a lot of people more because it means that you're not so limited to your size. It's like I'm on the smaller side for being a thrower. um, and not just what people think being a thrower is. I think a lot of the lady hammer throwers tend to be like between 5'8" and 5'10". Weight, I don't know, but like I'm a little bit shorter for a thrower. But I feel like I've always been able to have a very good connection with the ball and know how to move the hammer, because the more you move it, the further it goes. And yeah, because I don't think it's working hard, because anyone can work hard. Anyone who loves something can stay disciplined. Even if they don't like something, you can stay disciplined. I think the argument of you don't always like a class you're taking, but you still have to be disciplined to study and do the work and get it done. But I think it's just my relationship with the hammer. If you want to say speed, maybe, but like I think I've just always been able to really have a good connection as to knowing where the ball is in relation to me, how to move it, when to move it, which in hammer is everything. If you lose connection with the ball, you've already lost the whole throw. I'm going to lock that in for my final answer, but I'm really curious as to what Mo said.
From what I remember a couple hours ago, I haven't listened back to the recording, but this is what Coach Mo said. There are girls out there that are way more talented than Camryn, but her biggest strength lies in between her 2 ears. He says your mentality and your approach and the way you go about things is just, no talent is really going to beat that. And I think what he meant with the talent is exactly what I've noticed. I have noticed on TV. These athletes are physically talented in the sense that you are on the smaller side, for sure. Like that is something I immediately noticed just naturally. But I think I don't know too much about the specifics of the sport and the technique and the skill, but it is. I know your brain, I know some of your mind and how you approach it, and it makes so much sense.
I feel like it's a scary place, but I understand it.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, no.
That's what I remember.
Don't make me cry in the middle of our filming. My mascara isn't waterproof.
Gotta fix that. Sponsors listening.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
You have to be crazy to do crazy things. Do you have to be delusional to be successful?
This sounds familiar. I would say yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's a sort of delusion that you have to believe in yourself when maybe no one else does. If no one else sees the vision, if no one else understands the game, the ploy, the path, the anything, if you are the only one who can see it and the only one who believes in it, that makes you a little bit delusional. But I think it also makes you stand out, and in a way makes you quick question. I think it makes you delusional to other people, but I really think it lines you up exactly with where you need to be within yourself. Maybe I'll say that instead. But then, does that really matter if other people think you're delusional?
The people from the building were criticizing those that were dancing on the street because they couldn't hear the music. And those that can hear the music understand. But those that can't hear it will never get it.
I feel like that quote has never made so much more sense to me than it does in this moment.
Not mine, it's Nietzsche's, but yeah.
Thank you, Nietzsche. Nietzsche?
Nietzsche. I think it's in German. That's R.I.P. But
R.I.P. to the Schnitzel himself.
How do you feel about being so obsessed that you then become delusional until it becomes a reality? Do you think obsession kind of makes you delusional?
I think anyone who's crazy doesn't think they're crazy.
There's this idea of totally. There's this idea of, for example, and I think this is totally lying to yourself, but it motivates you to keep on going. You want it so bad because you already have it in the future.
You're just hitting me with the best quotes right now. I need a Google Doc of all your quotes.
They're written down, so I'll give them to you.
Thank you.
But how do you feel about that? Like, I'll say it again. You want it so bad because you already have it in the future. I think that's total bullshit. But once you're working and once you're in the middle of the grind, you read that and it's like, fuck yes. Let me keep going. It's right there. It's right there.
You're
Nobody
so
sees it,
close.
but you're right there.
And I think that right there is what can be that last final push when you're in practice. And it's like, not always healthy. Obviously, we need to rest at times, but it's like one more throw, one more ounce of energy, one more rep, one more anything. Because you know that everything that you're doing is leading you to that result. Maybe the result that only you can really see and really think only think you're the one who's like, who can do it compared to the people around you. So I'm okay if people think I'm delusional. It's my path, not theirs. But also, I think there's a lot of really great people who understand my path. But I remember when I think Mo would definitely remember this a lot better than I do, but I think I came in my freshman year, and he does this with all the freshmen. He's like, what's your goal? Like, what do you want to do in your college career? And everyone has different things that they want to do, you know, like people say like, I just want to be a great member of this team, or I want to get to conference, or I want to get to nationals, or I want to win nationals, or so on and so forth. I want to get to worlds and everything else. I remember looking at him and being like, I want to win an NCAA championship. I want to get to those big championships. And at that point, I was coming in I had like 3 weeks before, like just hit 63 meters. And so for context, I think I improved in college by 14 meters. I improved by 14 meters in college. And so I was like coming in as this like younger kid who definitely wasn't even the best freshman that year, like in the NCAA. But I love that in that moment, Mo and I were able to see the same thing, and we were able to connect on the same level. And I think he thought I was actually pretty serious about what I was talking about when I was telling him about my goals. And I was like, I'd love to go to the Olympics one day, and you know, it's all the things. And he's like, it won't be easy. It's actually gonna be really fucking hard. And I was like, but that's why I think you're the best. And in that moment, we saw each other, and I think he has only believed in me more and more ever since that day. Because I think for him, like bringing in any freshman, you obviously like believe in them and want them to do well. But when they can show you their intention, when they can show you what they want to do. And I remember at the end of that year too, like that was the only year I didn't make NCAAs. I was the first person out by an inch. And I remember like, obviously I was like crying. I was so emotional and so upset afterwards. And he pulled me aside and we talked about what went wrong. He said, okay, so when we're in Finland in like a month for Worlds. And I was like, you still want to come to Finland? I thought he was going to be like, you didn't even make it to NCAAs. Like, good luck, but I can't go. Like, you gotta, like, you're on your own kind of thing. I mean, not that he would, but I was like, I just didn't want him to be so disappointed in me and think of me as like a failure. And he looked at me and he said, why wouldn't I go? We're a team. And I know you can win. And I think that in and of itself, to look back at that whole year and know I came in wanting to do certain things, almost like try to convince him like, no, I can and I want to do these things, and have him throw that back at me and say, I know you can. And so we will. It's that really like that's what you dream of, I think, as an athlete. Those moments where you you understand what you want, but also someone else gets it too. Like that's when you find those special, unique relationships, especially for a coach. Like it's sadly not as common as it should be. So I'm extra grateful for him.
All you need in this life is ignorance and confidence. Then success is sure. Just dumb enough to believe in yourself and just smart enough to execute. It's true.
I might actually get that tattooed in Paris. I love that though. I love that. Might be one of my favorites today. Don't ask me why. I just love it.
I have like 5 more that I haven't used. Okay, well, we'll keep them for another time. But I think it is important to have that sort of blind confidence. But what you're saying is important because having all of this for yourself and being this delusional self is super important. But then when somebody else sees it too and you're like,
We're
oh,
both
I'm not crazy.
Oh.
Or, I mean, yeah. Or we're both crazy. But I think it's more of like, oh, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody else gets it too. Somebody else sees it too. It just changes everything. It's like a before and after. I think so.
I think so too.
A harsh truth I learned recently is that people will idolize your success, yet demonize the work it took to get there. How do you balance? How do you manage that? Having people that don't necessarily agree with the lifestyle, with the mindset, do you just block them out of your life? Do you just not even let them know what you're going through? Because it's easy for, especially people that care about you, to say, you're working too hard. You're pushing yourself too hard. Take a break. Take it easy. It'll be fine if you take a day off, if you take a little vacation.
So what I will say is I was lucky enough to be raised by people who were the ones who actually told me to work harder, who did not let me take time off, even when I was absolutely exhausted and wanted to. So massive shout out to them. Thank you. But there's always the people who are like, like your friends, like, come hang out. And, goes back to the sacrifices, the trade-off, the choices. I mean, they see you working too hard compared to the own work that they do for what they want. And it's just, you're doing different things. It's just not the same.
Is it worth keeping that type of people in your life?
I don't think someone is a bad person or like a bad influence on you if they think that you're working too hard. I think it means that they care about you. And if anything, maybe they're seeing things that you don't see. Maybe they see you not sleeping. Maybe they see you like not going anywhere except your training environment and your home. And that's it. Except maybe the grocery store once a week. Maybe they see you like limping around because you're so sore. That's where the ignorance on your part comes in. Because those are the things that you just recognize and accept are just part of the process, and you move on because you're like, this is going to get me to where I need to be. But they only see some of those other things. I think a lot of those people are coming from a place of, well, hopefully a lot of those people are coming from a place of, I just want to help you. But I mean, that help isn't always what you need. I think a lot of the time you need people to be like, get your ass back out there. Even if your ass is getting whooped, get your ass back out there. And I think both of those people come from a place of care and concern. It's how it's executed and how that impacts you and what you want for yourself and what they want for you. Because I think for some of the people who tell you to like relax or like take a break, for them, it is coming from a place of care and concern in the way that they think and the only way that they can understand care and concern to be. It's just different.
Understanding that difference doesn't make them good or bad, but understanding it is so important, I feel like, because It helps you. You can't hate that which you understand. You can't. So anytime that you are saying, oh, I hate this person, I hate their opinion, I hate the way they act, it's because you don't understand where it's coming from. If you understand where it's coming from, you're not going to hate it because you understand it. So by knowing how to categorize these people of like, oh, they mean well, they just don't get it. I think it's something I struggle with a lot. Like I'm articulating it in the simplest of ways right now, and potentially it sounds quite obvious, but I struggle with that all the time.
Do you feel like you've had to cut people out because of it?
From some areas of my life, for sure. Because we just don't see the same things. We just don't. Like, they don't get it. And so they'll question everything because I think it's wrong to judge people's values. I think everybody has their own values and they should be respected. When you start crossing those boundaries, I think that is a mistake. But for me, recognizing that they are judging from a different set of values just makes me shrug it off. And to understand that we don't want the same things and that they are assuming that I want what they want for me. Those are completely different things. They are wishing the best for me for what they understand to be the best. I just don't believe that is the best for me. And we're seeing completely different things, but we have the same intention. So understanding that there is love beneath that is what helps me be okay with it. But knowing that I don't have to listen to that verbatim is also what keeps me sane.
Yeah. They can share your opinion, doesn't mean you have to accept it.
Totally. There's this little gift I got maybe 2 years ago from my dad. And it's one of my favorite quotes to this day. It says, "You see things, you say why, but I dream things that never were, and I say why not." And I think
I love that.
that's the way I approach it. It's those that see opportunities where everybody else sees obstacles. Why would you do that? Why? But then there's this set of people that ask, why wouldn't you? For sure, go after it. For sure, do this, do that. And I think it's the difference between optimists and pessimists. Pessimists are going to see a problem where every optimist sees a solution.
Anything that's ever come to be has been from people asking, why not? Everything, as big or as small as it may seem, as big or as small. Someone just saying, why not? Why not just try? Why not pursue?
Interested people watch obsessed people change the world. By believing passionately in something that still doesn't exist, we create it. The non-existent is whatever we have not sufficiently desired. If something burns your soul with purpose and desire, it's your duty to be reduced to it by ashes. That's how I see it. That's our responsibility. If you can see it, it's your responsibility to like.
You owe it to the world and to yourself.
But I think it's much bigger than yourself. I think that with great power comes great responsibility. And I think everybody has their own power. Everybody. And to not maximize your potential is to steal from the world. Because you have this gift and your responsibility is to share it with everybody else. To not do so, to not give it your best, to not give it everything you have, to not be reduced to ashes by it, is to take a gift away from the world.
You've been blessed.
I think everybody has.
To be blessed with something and to not share it, I agree, is a waste. Only you get to see it. That's not fair.
I think everybody else should see it as well, and it is part of our responsibility, and we're all supposed to work together and build a better society. That's how I believe it should be. Let's get much deeper. I brought this up to you, and
Is this the one I've been waiting for?
no, not yet.
Oh, like you made me so excited about it. I need a really pointed look before you ask me the question. You need to be like,
It'll be the
are
next
you
section.
ready?
It'll be the
Okay.
next section.
Okay.
For now, I often think about death, my mortality,
Mm-hmm.
my limited time.
I love this section already.
We've talked about this. I don't think about it in a terribly pessimistic way, but rather an optimistic way. I feel like there is a stopwatch or a clock just ticking right above my head or inside my head every single second of my life. It's not that I get older. It's not that I am a year older. It's that I'm a year closer to my death. That's just how I choose to see it. What is your relationship like with your mortality? Does it motivate you? Is it something that inspires you? Is it something that scares you? How do you see it?
Ooh, okay. Okay. I love this because I feel like my opinion on mortality and my own death has changed so much. It has changed so much over my life and so drastically. And if you don't believe me that it was drastic, let me tell you that one of the reasons I had to go to therapy the first time when I was 15 is because I started getting panic attacks and insane levels of anxiety. And my panic attacks would always come, well, most of the time would come at night when I was trying to fall asleep. And it would literally be from me starting to fall asleep and then basically feeling and imagining that I was dying and the fear around it and not having enough time and losing everyone and losing everything and being afraid of pain and not knowing how or why and feeling like it was unfair. And then I would literally get such a bad panic attack that I would wake up. So that was I did not sleep for like a year straight and that was awful. But I think a lot of that had to do as well with me still trying to figure out what I wanted to, not necessarily like, not that I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. Like, obviously, like, I was like, oh, I want to do sport. I want to be a lawyer and la da 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 da. But feeling like I didn't have enough time. Feeling like I was at a point where I was really happy with my life and not wanting to like let it go or lose it. Or, I don't know, just feeling, it was just this weird thing of like, I was just scared, which is weird because it's like, what do you mean you're getting panic attacks at the age of like 15 because of death? Like that, like that is so angsty. But it was just the craziest. And to this day, I think I still don't really know the true reason behind why it started happening. It just did. It hit me like a ton of bricks one day. Like, I'm going to die. Like, it full on hit me like a throat punch. Like, I'm going to die one day. And it scared me so much that it impacted the life that like the too short life I already have to live. And that was one of the things that I think started to pull me out of it. Was like, I can't be afraid of dying if I haven't even given myself the chance to fully live my life. And I think that was a big motivator to work on it more in therapy, but also to start doing things for myself in my life. And especially, I think once I got to college and with the friends I've met now who have all like, and the things I'm doing, like they've all given me a reason to live. And now I'm like, I've accepted it so much more. It's like a radical acceptance of like, yeah, I'm going to die. I don't want to know how and I don't want to know when, but I'm going to die. And until I finally get some eternal beauty sleep, I'm going to do as much as I freaking can day in and day out to make this life worth living. It also goes back to my own beliefs of what I think is going to happen afterwards, which is nothing, but which, if anything, motivates me more because I'm like, I got one life. And for some freaking crazy reason, the universe happened in such a way that we were blessed with consciousness and get to experience our lives in this most present form of ourselves right now. And to not make the most of it, as you say, would be a waste. So it is a motivator, but the way it has motivated me over time and over like throughout my life has changed, but definitely for the better. I had a really unhealthy relationship when it came to thinking of my own mortality for a long time, in such a way that it took away from the life that I wanted to live. And now being at a place where I'm like, yep, it's going to happen. I still get scared of it sometimes. I still have to like stave off the little bits of like lingering panic attacks. And I'm like, down, boy. But it just is a thing. I don't know. I still don't know if there was like a day or a time or something that really triggered the change, but it happened and I was like, it went from, oh my God, I'm going to die one day to I'm going to die. We're all going to die. That's one thing that I think every human being has in common. We are born and we die. But I really want to try to at least make.
My bad. It's one of my. That's a full circle moment. That's my sleep alarm.
What time is it?
It's 8.
Okay, wait. Now that we have a pause, may I go pee? May I go pee for 2 seconds?
Yeah,
May I
yeah.
really quickly go pee? Are you sure? Are
Go
you
for
positive?
it. Yeah.
Our conversations are so good. We need a bathroom break.
Yes. So.
Perfect timing too. Mortality.
Exactly. Yeah. So where were we specifically? Obviously talking about mortality. Apologies for my alarm. Full circle moment to the podcast. That is my sleep alarm. Doesn't matter for today. But all right. We were talking about mortality, and you were specifically talking about
my history with panic attacks at the thought of my own mortality to the radical acceptance, as my sports psych likes to say, radical acceptance of it as being something we can't change. And instead, it just is. And then we get to just try and do as much as we can before then.
To me, it's extremely motivating because I also went through something similar, although to not to that radical extent per se, but I remember being a kid, and I'm talking first grade, and being like crying myself to sleep at the thought of like, whoa, my parents are going to die. Like they're going to die at some point, and I will probably live longer than them. Not long, like longer than them in calendar years, right? And that was like, whoa. But then when I shifted it to, oh, I'm going to die, meaning like step out of your comfort zone, try everything. And then everybody you care about will also die. And in a few years, nobody's going to remember you. So like the little things that you think are important, literally nobody remembers. Even while we are alive, you think that people are paying attention to you. They do not have the time to pay attention to you. You think they are thinking about you. They are not. They are too busy thinking about themselves. But even then, even if they are thinking about you, they will die. They are going to die. And
We're all going to die. And
even
isn't that
if
amazing?
even if you die before them, they will probably not be at your funeral. And even if they are at your funeral, they will forget about it in a year. They will. It'll go by. Something the way I like to think about life now, and this is a message to younger Camryn and to younger Fair. Life is like driving a car that you know will eventually crash. You don't know when, you just know that it will. Knowing that information, you can either be sad about it and crash it yourself, or you can choose to make the best of it by picking people up along the way or driving to cool places while you're blasting some good music along the way. That's how I choose to think about it. It's like you have the choice. It's a limited time. Nobody cares what you do with it. Realistically, like even the people that say that they care about it, they will not live long enough for their care to matter how you live your life. And assuming that you do only get one life and that nothing happens afterwards, why wouldn't you send it? Why wouldn't you try?
I'll send. Love it.
Another one that I have that inspires me a lot whenever I am scared to step out of my comfort zone. Whenever I am, whatever it may be. Sometimes it's cold calling. Sometimes it's going up to strangers. Sometimes it's talking to a girl. Like it's all these different things. And this is a little phrase that I like to remind myself of. Life is too short not to try. Buy her flowers, ask her out, tell her how you really feel. She could be a metaphor for an opportunity, a fear, or an actual person. Whatever she may be, just know that if you haven't tried, you haven't lived. Because even if you fail, what better way is there to live? It is much better to try and fail than to not try at all and to regret that for the rest of your life. How have you seen this mortality, this memento mori, inspire you or impact your life?
Memento mori is that everything must end.
Memento mori is a reminder that you are mortal. So it's like the Latin phrase for remember that you will die.
Oh, that's what it is. You would think I would remember because I was in one of the last little fairy smut books I read. Really weird connection there, but still.
Memento mori.
Memento mori. Ooh, potential tattoo idea? I have so many tattoos from today. I'm going to be inked up. So sorry, question one more time. What was your question again?
How has this memento mori, how has that inspired you to live your life in ways that you wouldn't have previously?
Whereas before, I think that the idea, and well, not even the idea, knowing that I'm going to die would be something that I feel like would hold me back and scare me. I think the idea of it before was like knowing I was going to die would make me so cautious to try to extend my life for as long as I could that I never even gave myself the chance to live, which is insane when you think about it. But now it's more just like, as you said, I'm going to die. Let's try and make this the best life that I can. Make it a ride to remember and have the final send-off be a giant party for my memorial. Damn right. I'm going to throw it back in ghost form at my own memorial. And cheers to that.
Here's another one for you to tattoo. We all have 2 lives, and the second one begins the moment we realize that we only have one. So, yes, you could fail. You might lose friends along the way. You could be ridiculed and constantly questioned about why you push yourself so hard. But what if it turns out better than you could have ever imagined? And I think that's the thing. It's like, who cares what they say?
I have heard that quote before, and I love it because I think was it Mo I was talking to about it? I'm not sure, but someone who I was talking to said, I think that we get so caught up with what if things don't go according to plan, like what if things don't go right, that we never even consider like what if everything we could have ever wanted happens? Like what if something goes wrong versus what if it goes right?
What if it could turn out better than you could have ever imagined? What if?
What if? And then if you don't try, you never know.
If you haven't tried, you haven't lived.
And life's too damn short to not try.
All right, Cameron, are you ready?
I'm gripping the table. Before you start, may I just say, surprises personally freak me the fuck out. This is me trying to live. I'm trying something new. So I've been thinking about this the whole time, and I've been trying to think of what it could possibly be. It's just a question.
It's just a question, yeah.
Okay.
It's 2 of them.
Okay.
And if at any point you're like, all right, we're not doing this, we'll just cut it out.
Okay. I've been trying to think, I'm like, what is the most awkward or most uncomfortable thing? I didn't think you were going to bring up death, so now I have no clue what you're going to ask. Okay, hit me. I'm ready.
What are we men not aware of when it comes to the invisible difficulties of women competing in the Olympics?
Whatever I thought you were going to ask, it wasn't going to be that. Ooh. I'll ask you a question in response. Did you know that I think this will be the first Olympics where they are giving parents like welcome packages?
It is the very first one. I believe it's Allison Felix that is teaming up with Pampers.
That's the one. And the fact that it's taken so long to come to this, but also the fact that over the last good number of Olympic cycles, we've seen how women's inclusion in sport and in the Olympics has changed so vastly, and to the equal footing it's at now. The fact that women like Allison even had to go through the experience of wanting to start a family and losing her whole sponsorship because of it. And not just like, oh, you lost a sponsorship. Like, as an athlete, your sponsorship can mean the difference between like paying your bills or not, paying your mortgage, paying your rent, buying groceries, paying your phone bill, utilities, getting to your meets, being able to compete. As well, okay, that's all parent. Okay, so that's all the parent section, which a lot of the time falls mostly onto the woman, onto the mom. But I've not experienced that just quite yet, so I don't think I can speak on it as much. But that's so interesting, because when I think about my own experience of being in the Olympics and going to any major championship, I don't think of it as being any different from anyone else's, because it's my own and it's the only one that I know. So I'll give you a quick fun story. Did I ever tell you? I'm actually wondering, I don't know if I told you this. Did I ever tell you that in Tokyo, I got my period when I was there, and I was a dumbass who didn't bring anything with them and had to talk to one of the city and like organizational reps that we had connecting with Team Canada at our pre-Olympic camp in Gifu, Japan, which was like 6 hours south of Tokyo. I had to talk to her so she could go out to the city, because it was during COVID. We couldn't leave. She had to go buy me feminine products, if you will, to bring them back. And I had to PayPal her because I literally forgot to bring them because I was a dumbass.
These are the additional things that guys will just never consider.
Never consider.
Does that affect your performance?
Oh, your period?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay. I will. Mine personally, or like as a woman, because every woman's period is going to affect them differently.
I have no clue what I'm asking. Like, I'm asking out of ignorance.
Okay. Everyone's period is different. I have an IUD, so I rarely get mine right now, which is very nice. So I don't get a lot of changes in my training or in competition because of it, thank God. But one's period, oh yeah, 1000%. Because you're like, there are women, and I used to be one of these women when I was younger, when I was a girl, who can barely like function, like can't even stand up when they're on their period because they're in so much pain. And I think when you see all those comparisons of, you know, like, oh, like this pain for a woman is equivalent to like this for a guy. Like, I think it's still so hard to imagine the differences in how you live your life and the things that you have to consider and be wary of. Like, I don't know, at the Olympics specifically, it's harder because my own experience wasn't a normal Olympics, I'll say. And I didn't actually do a whole ton except train and study because I was taking my class and competing. And they had like limited things they were doing in Tokyo anyways because of COVID. So that was that. But oh man, I wish I had more off the top of my head to say, because I know there are so many other incredible women who would know exactly like what to bring up right now. And I just can't. I don't know. I can't even really think of it because it's just my life. It's just what I've gotten used to.
From what you know, is it true that most high-level elite athletes, Olympians, have IUDs to perform better?
That I don't know, because I don't know a lot of other, like, I think women are like talk about their periods quite freely, even more freely now, I think, than in like past decades, which is great.
But not IUDs?
IUDs, yes, but what I mean is I just don't normally be like, "Hey, do you have an IUD?" You know?
I mean, I have no idea how that works. So yeah.
I mean, I think women are so open to talking about things more that it's okay. What I'm trying to say is a lot of these topics used to be taboo. I think even amongst women, which is kind of sad because like how are you supposed to be like embarrassed or ashamed of something that's completely natural and normal and that we've only made to be something shameful of on purpose and because of like a male mindset? Like that's weird. Like that's weird. And I personally got an IUD just because I was like, I hate getting my period. I think it's completely unnecessary right now. I'm not trying to pop out a kid. And I don't want to be surprised on like a comp day if I wake up and I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, you know? Because I know myself, like I get tired, I get lethargic, my iron is low, and I just know it'll impact too much. And I want to be able to control as many things as I can. And I actually so the IUD I have lasts for like 5 to 7 years. I got my first one on my 18th birthday because I thought it was funny to prevent pregnancy on the day I was born. And so I got it in 2017, which means that by 2024, this year, it would have been the optimal time to be like, okay, first replacement. No, I'm on my third one because I got my period back too quickly on them. And every time, the third time I went in this past year to get it redone, they were like, this is your third one in 6 years. That's a little sus. Like, why are you trying to do this? And I was like, I'm going to the Olympics. I'm not risking anything. And I think the second I said that, they're like, just let her get it. Just let her do it. But the experience is awful because they don't like numb you or do anything for the pain, which is dumb because it is so painful and so shocking that I actually passed out and partially seized up the first time I had mine done. So yay for me. And it's not saying, okay, not for that to be a thing for people who are like considering it to then be like, don't get it. Like, I think if it's something that you decide is best for yourself, then talk with your doctor and have a plan in place before you go get it done. But it's been a whole roller coaster of things like that. Like, great example of what a guy maybe wouldn't have to consider. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It just is what it is to me because that's the world I live in. That's the way I live my life, and that just is it. I'm just a woman, so that's just the things I go through. But yeah, I mean, to go through a painful and extremely uncomfortable procedure 3 times, and you only needed to go through it once, just to limit the number of factors that could impact you in training or in competition, like, and it costs money.
Yeah, that is something I would have never considered personally, which I remember when I talked about this with Lacey Yonke, which it was back home, an episode I recorded back home. She was covering the Olympics. She worked for NBC during the Olympic summer.
Cool.
And one of the articles that she wrote up was on an interview covering the white uniforms and how that's a huge deal for very obvious reasons. You see it again to reference tennis, Wimbledon. It's all white and all the things that go along with that. And personally, I would have never considered it. I just wouldn't have. It's not something I think about. Is that wrong? I haven't been exposed to it. And I think talking about it is how you understand. And the more you, again, I'm sure it's as uncomfortable all right, let me rephrase. I think if it's uncomfortable for me to ask, it's even more uncomfortable for people to talk about it. It shouldn't be though.
Well, for other people, I can't say. I think for me, actually, I appreciate it because I know how hard it is, I think, for a lot of men to actually like go and ask and want to learn. Because for a lot of people, for some guys, it's still just like, no, like blood. It's like, I don't know, like it just is what it is.
It's life.
It's life. I don't know. Woman just decided to, or just just did not get pregnant, and then you have blood. So that's all it is.
On the sillier side of things, are the anti-sex beds in the Olympic Village a legitimate thing? Is that true? Is it bullshit? What's going on here? Because it's every single Olympics that I see this headline. So are the anti-sex beds a legitimate thing within the Olympic Village?
So I think the fact that that people thought of them as anti-sex was just like a cherry on top. They were actually, the cardboard beds are meant to be more sustainable. So they brought them into Tokyo. They're like, because we can break them down so much easier after. And then all the buildings that we have for the village can just be turned into apartments for people. And it's perfect. The beds were actually super comfortable and you can like jump on them. So they're definitely not anti-sex. My freaking side table, however, not as durable. I put my hand through the whole top of it by accident when I was leaning on it. But the beds themselves, super comfortable. And oh, it was so funny. There is a content creator, well, first and foremost, an amazing U.S. women's rugby player who is a big-time content creator, Alona Mayer, who is like, you're telling me that you think giving athletes cardboard beds will keep them from having sex? She was like, you think that giving some of the fittest people in the entire world the limitation of not having a bed is going to keep them from boning? They sent a record number of condoms to Rio. It was like over 600,000.
To Rio?
The Rio Olympics in 2016. So I know they didn't send any to Tokyo for understandable reasons. But with Paris, I don't know if they will be doing that again, or if not, I don't plan on using them. Not because I'll be having sex without them, but just because I won't be having sex.
City of love. City of love.
Hey, yo. I'm just there to do my job, okay? But I don't know. And I think a lot of other people are wondering, like, in this post-COVID world that we're now in, like, is this something that like Olympic committees will consider? Like athletes are in these villages are going to have sex. Like,
it makes sense.
They're going to have sex.
It's
you
like
have some of the most fittest, hottest people in the world you're surrounded by them. You're gonna be having people have sex.
It's quite literally like being in college athletics where you're all in a little town, but here yes. It's like to an exaggerated amount of people that you will probably never see again.
Yeah.
Just in a tiny, quite literally village. And it's like you're just bubbled up in there.
Exactly. So it's gonna happen. But now I don't know if they're going to take this safer, like, we should probably give them condoms just in case route, or if they're like, we can't risk people getting sick, so maybe if we like increase the cardboard and decrease the protection, maybe it'll keep them from doing it. And it's like, no, that's not gonna happen. But we appreciate your thoughts.
Speaking of Paris, speaking about the Olympic Village, to close out, what are we expecting here? This episode will be out the week before you start competing. The Olympics will be up and going. But what can we expect in Paris?
Every year I want to improve. So to finish in a similar vein of last year, to do even better this year, to be on that podium, to be on top of that podium, to hit a new personal best, to do something that's never been done before by a Canadian woman, that is my goal. Like, I think I was so young and had so much more experience left to garner when I was in Tokyo, that it was such an overwhelming experience, to the point where I got to the final and I was like, oh my God, I made it to the final. And then I was like, what do I do now? And I was like, you throw. And I'm like, what do I do now? Or now I'm like, all right, we're going to go in there and we're going to execute the plan. Because we have a plan and we've been working on that plan for years. And we have been waiting for this moment. And I just can't be more excited to go out there and show everyone exactly what it is that we've been building for.
Can't wait to see.
Can't wait to do it.
Camryn Rogers, record third time here on the podcast. Thank you so much. From the 3 that we've done, this is for sure our best work.
I think
without
so.
a doubt. For sure, the longest we've done. Obviously, there will be a cut because of our little break, but great episode, great conversation. I appreciate you so much. As we mentioned at the beginning, we hang out way more off the podcast than on the podcast.
Better be for 3 times in 3 years.
Yeah.
But
no.
I'm super grateful to you for having me and for even just wanting to chat with me and talk about the sport and everything in my own life. And to hear more about yours is very inspiring. And I'm just grateful for you and for our friendship. And thank you for having me on for a record 3rd time. Looking forward to the 4th.
Very grateful for you. Very grateful for your friendship. I cannot wait to watch you in Paris. It'll be so exciting. I was watching you in Tokyo on my bed I wasn't in crutches on my bed, right? But I was just post-surgery and I was like jumping on one leg. So it'll be much better to be able to jump on 2 legs this time around. I cannot wait to watch you kill it in Paris. I cannot wait to talk about it again for another record-breaking 4th time. And hopefully that won't be the only record that we're talking about. But for now, that is it for this episode. Camryn, thank you so much.
Bing.